So we have a lot. Like we've been talking a lot, like in our just chat that we have going constantly. It's kind of a big date for you, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Do you want to rip the band-aid off and go with the hardest stuff first?
sure. I can only say like what today is, I suppose. Today's my dad's birthday,
Mhm.
and I've seen people post about PTSD stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that people post that much about how like it dates can like make you like that. Like, and it's not like a like people talk sometimes about like trauma anniversaries, like an
Mhm.
anniversary of like a traumatic event happened on that day, and that makes sense. Like 9/11 is one of those for some people, or like the beginning of COVID for like everybody, for like the world at large.
Of course.
Um, I don't have any of those, like, because I don't remember when anything actually happened. So I guess that's like a plus of lots of dissociations that you can't remember when these super traumatic things happen to you. I'm not even sure the ages I am in some of like the most traumatic things. I can like guess because of other things of how old I was, but I generally don't know. But sometimes it's just like an entire day, and it's just, what do I do about that? I don't know. And it's just, it's his birthday every year. He's been dead for 11 years, but it's still his birthday.
Mhm.
The other like stuff with him, I don't know. It's his, like, the day that he died was 2 weeks ago, and that doesn't bother me at all anymore because I just wish that he would have died sooner. But always still bothers me, and it's probably the worst one of the year that I can think of. There isn't really another date like that, but that does happen for people. Sometimes it's like a whole day
Yeah.
that you just have to deal with it. Like, it happens every year. There's nothing that you can do about it. It just happens. Um, and it does get easier every year, but it is still really hard. Um, and of course, like today was a day when like Medusa people were giving me shit,
Of
and I
course.
was just like, of course you're doing it. Of course you're doing it today, out of like every day, because of course like I was posting more about her because I was in the couple days before that because I knew it was going to be his birthday soon. And that's the only way I know how to like cope with something like that, is to think about somebody that gives me a lot of comfort. And I posted this on Threads like an hour ago, and I was just like, what is exactly the point of like Becky and Rick writing this version of Medusa, and like working with like the writers and them doing a good job of making this great story that is meant to be for survivors to feel like comforted or just like understood in a way that usually isn't shown, at least in like movies and stuff with Medusa.
Mhm.
If the anytime you ever post about it, somebody pops up to be like, "You're not allowed to like that. She's not actually a survivor. Go find somebody else." Like, so do I just never talk about it?
Yeah.
And then it's like this month is sexual assault awareness month, and there's like four different trends right now going on of people just like disclosing their sexual like trauma. Two of them about Medusa, and two different like invite like I don't know what to call it, like groups of people. Like one is like, I think it's like Mexican people because of the music sounds like banda, like Mexican music that is saying like Medusa visited me when I was this age. And there's another one, there's a couple other ones like that of people just saying that they are like, half of my FYP for the last week has been like like literal children in high school, maybe at the oldest, posting and being like, I don't know if my like sexual trauma counts because it was my mom that did it instead of my dad. And there's like an entire like tag just about mother daughter like essay.
Mhm.
And I keep seeing them suddenly because of that going on, and I'm just like, can anyone else see this? Like, I do see like those posts because of, I like, that's why I try to use songs on a lot of my videos that kids like,
Mhm.
so that I keep seeing things like that, because how else are you gonna ever see what they're saying unless you use stuff like that to like show that you'll see it when you're not a kid yourself. And so I see that stuff like from kids every once in a while, but the last couple days it's been like lots of boys and girls and everyone else just talking about all this stuff like act and like the comment sections are full of other kids being like, yeah, I haven't told anybody anything either. Or like I called CPS and they didn't do anything. And it's just like I hope somebody else besides me sees this stuff because I don't know what to do about this. Just like seeing it over and over again, and it just feels ridiculous that I can't even post about Medusa without multiple assholes showing up and being like, "You're not allowed to like that thing because I've decided that you're right, I'm right, and you're wrong." And it's like I don't know what's wrong with people that you see a group of people using a story for like comfort after huge trauma and you feel the need to dunk on them because it makes you feel good to
Yeah.
tell them that they're wrong. One of those comments that always bother me the most is that they're like really excited about telling me that I'm wrong because they just assume that I don't know that there's other Medusa myths. And it's like, yeah, I know that. I just like this one because I like it the most. Is there a problem with that? There's multiple versions of lots of stories. This is just the one that I enjoy the most. And but they just assume like you don't know this and I get to dunk on you by telling you that you're an idiot. And it's like actually I do know this. So why are you assuming that I don't? And then also why are you having so much fun like ruining somebody who's trying to share something like that out of everything possible? Couldn't you go yell at somebody else on the internet if you
Well,
really need to do that to feel good?
yeah, and I said this last week, but I feel like I have a good comparison now with like the Medusa adaptations, the ones that support survivors, that make survivors feel more seen. That is a positive within this world. We need more stories that make people feel seen when it comes to trauma. But like the adaptations that diminish trauma, like we talked a lot of shit about Song of Achilles, specifically for the fact that they ignore that both Patroclus and Achilles were coerced into doing stuff with Deidomia. Am I thinking the right person?
Mm-hmm.
Deianira. Wait, no, Deianira is. I get
I
these two
think it's
mixed up.
Theodomia.
Deidomia, and then Deianira is Hercules' second wife. I get those two mixed up. But yeah, like there's that adaptation harmful. We have these boys who go through this coercion, and nothing is ever said about it. But you have the Medusa one where, like, especially more feminist retellings. I'm going to use the Percy Jackson show one specifically. That one, she is 100% a survivor. She is 100% saying, for some reason, I was turned into this, even though Poseidon was the one who did something. And you know what? I'm treating it as a gift. And that was beautiful. That was beautifully written. I loved the costuming. I loved everything about it. Like, wouldn't change a thing. But when it comes to, again, like, if we're going to make victims, survivors feel less seen, that's when I think we need to be like, okay, do we need to tell the story this way? Like, do we need to say Achilles was coerced by his mom and this girl, and then Patroclus was too, and never acknowledge it? No, we don't need to. You know, it does nothing to the story.
Yeah, and I just think that I did a post about it, this idea this week, where I was like, I know for a fact that if I got on here and cried and like told people the actual like details of the things my dad did to me and said that Medusa made me feel better, people would love it because I would be making like my trauma like a fucking sideshow for everybody to consume. It's not entertainment. What happened to me is not entertainment. It's not, and like abuse victims should not have to make it that for you to care. And but that's what we've had to do. The only time anyone ever like cares, at least in a big way, on social media or anything, is when you make it like this big dramatic thing that people can talk about instead of it just being like what it actually is. And it's like I know that if I did that, none of these people would say shit to me, but I refuse to do that because I have self-respect.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to myself just to get like just to have people be nice to me. I'm not I'm not going to do that at all. I would rather die than treat myself that way. Like, I don't want to perpetuate that idea. Um, but that's just ridiculous. That's the only way that you can get people to like see you as a person. And it's
Mhm.
just, of course, like one like Medusa on Percy Jackson, where she's very, the story that she tells about Poseidon and Athena is a very common story that happens to a lot of people, especially when you're a teenager, both like all genders. It doesn't matter. Like, it happens that way of feeling like you not realizing that you don't really, you can't ever give consent to this person until it's too late. The idea that, even, I haven't posted a video of this yet, but that Medusa, when she's talking to Percy, describes his mom, Sally, as another victim of Poseidon, and that she wants to help him because she feels like a connection to Sally. And it's like, yeah, there was never a single time in Sally's entire life that she could have actually consented to doing anything with Poseidon, because she had no idea what that even meant. She didn't know what she, you can't consent to something when you don't know what's actually going on. He knew, which is
Yeah.
why I hate him. Like, he knew. He knew what was going to happen to her when he did that, and he did it anyway. She didn't have any idea. And so it's like, there can never be consent with any of the humans that do things with the gods, because they're way too powerful. And there's powerful people like that in our world too. And with Medusa, she's, the reason why she turns against the kids in the show is because Percy, she is so sure that the gods will never help these kids, that she like tries to get Percy to turn against his friends because his friends are like trying to defend the gods still. And she's like, I can help you get away from them so that you can go and save your mother, because they're not going to help you save your mom. That's literally what she says to him in the kitchen, is, you need to go save your mom. Your friends are not going to help her. And because they're going to just be on the god's side. And
Yeah.
that's why she turns against them and tries to kill them all, because she's like done with people like giving excuses for the gods when she doesn't think they're ever going to do the right thing. And they don't. He
Hmm.
forces them to. But it's just, that's the reason why she's like goes against them. That is the most like rational, like understandable reason that somebody would feel that way, because she's right about that.
Yeah.
It's just that we know that Grover and Annabeth like changed their minds about things, but but you can at least understand why she feels that way.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just like, of course, that story is one that people get so mad that you just like it, because they just, I don't know, because it's not, it's another situation of Medusa is like wearing, she looks beautiful, she's being seen. Like, one of the quotes from Rick that I love is that he says that the hardest thing that happened to her was that she was made invisible. And so on their version, they made her be seen, and that she looked beautiful and felt beautiful. And I was like, yeah, that's the worst part, honestly, is that you feel like you're invisible and that nobody can notice what's happening, and you're just like standing there like, can anyone see me? And so that's very much what they were trying to do. And that's a really great story of a survivor, not like, sitting there on the floor crying about how sad their life is, but making it clear to you what happened to them anyway, and that they've found a way to like make it work for them in a
Hmm.
way. And of course, there's people that are like, that's not good enough because you can't call it Greek mythology. Um, and
Yeah.
they would probably love like the stories that are in like The Hunger Games, which is just pure trauma porn. That's all that series is. It's aggressive trauma porn to
Yeah.
make you feel really sad.
Well,
You can,
and
that's it.
we have such a unique like perspective on the whole like trauma porn of being online and talking about your trauma, because we both have tried it in various ways. Like, and it gets weird because people will form their own narratives around the things that you say. Like, I learned very quickly, I can't ever post about when I have a disagreement with Jake, because the comment section is going to be like, leave him, divorce him,
Yeah.
he's the worst. And specifically, like when it comes to me being no contact with my mom, like that is constantly a butt head situation, because he's like, I'm dealing with her, I don't like this, can we stop? And
Yeah.
it's understandable, but at the same time, like, I don't need people telling me, oh, leave him, he doesn't understand you if he doesn't get it. Like, no, the man has good parents, that's why he doesn't get it.
Yeah. And also, it's like a thing, like whenever that would come up in the past, I'd be like, yeah, we're friends, so I can sit there and be like, I don't like it when he says this or does this, or I just want to make sure that he actually understands what's going on and that you aren't just like saying nothing because you're being a trauma victim, and like not wanting to make things uncomfortable or whatever. And I'm like, because I know you,
Yeah.
these bitches don't know you, so they need to like stop talking because they have no idea who you are. Like, I can say that because we are actually friends. They can't say that because they have no idea who you even are, who these people are. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I guess when I was doing that stuff, like I think everyone tries to do that at first, like talk about yourself. Um, but I just remember it always felt absolutely disgusting when every time I made a video where I was upset and I
Hmm.
didn't like wait to post it when I was like more calm or like delete it right after I posted it or something. Those videos always did the best. And I was like, you guys are literally like reveling in watching me be dysregulated, traumatized, triggered, and upset. That is disgusting. I would rather have hardly any followers at all if the only followers that watch me are the ones hoping to watch me like fall apart basically because I don't know why. But I just remember that when there was a one of those like huge things that was going on TikTok at the time about that situation of the family where the kids were very much being abused by their dad, and there were videos of it happening and people posted videos, and I was having like massive flashbacks to my own childhood watching clips of the oldest child doing and saying the exact same kind of arguments I would have with my dad and watching her do it with that dad. And I just made a video once just like yelling about it, literally yelling about it, because I had seen so many of them in one day. That video was up for like 2.5 hours and it got 200,000 views. And I just deleted it because the comments were insane, and I just couldn't handle it because I was just like, that feels really gross that video got over 200,000 views in like 2 hours because I was visibly upset and yelling and obviously in a triggered state while making that video, and that's what people want to see. Um, I just refuse to do that, and it just feels really gross. And I just like refuse to. We both at some point just were like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
This is just really weird, which is why we started talking about this stuff instead, because it just feels really weird
Yeah.
to know that that's what people want, but it's like, but I don't want to do that. Um, it just feels strange.
Hmm.
Um, and then, oh Lord. So there's just a bunch of stuff to talk quickly about actual Percy Jackson stuff.
Yeah.
One thing that Rick said was that, just to read like the tweet that he did today,
Oh
he
yeah.
said, this week is look over marketing and merchandising for season two, which makes sense as it comes out in December. Um, Read and note a script for season three.
Hmm.
So a script that is not finished yet, but a script that they're currently writing or writing right now. Edit a manuscript that I can't talk about yet.
I love that you
um,
did that.
yeah, continue writing a manuscript, which is the third Percy Jackson book that he's been coming out in the last couple years of him trying to do his stuff so he can go to college. Um, and then have meetings on two other projects that he can't talk about yet.
Hmm.
And I was just like, okay. And then the new fun section that is just like Becky Riordan said this, and so I decided to share it because it's Becky Riordan, is the thing I guess I wanted to make a point of because we talked about J.K. Rowling being horrible to ace people, not
Hmm.
even an ace person, um, last week, and so she did a post about just like a reading list and was saying that she was glad that Harry Potter wasn't on the list, but
Yeah.
she ended it with, people who are ace deserve respect, haters get none.
Hmm.
And I just thanked her for saying that because it is hard when you have that stuff going on about yourself. Um, One of our like regular people, Issa, she was like, Becky has like, is she like, is Becky is like a savage. I'm like, she just takes no bullshit.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. Like I sometimes I imagine people like me, which would be someone like her, being in the same room with me, and if we were both mad at the same person, that person would just like explode into dust because
I forget what the creator's name is, but she does a lot of content on The Good Place. And
Mhm.
so she did this series where she's like, "Oh, these are who I would pair different fictional people with in like their bad place." And she put Emily Gilmore and then Claire Dunphy from Modern Family, and it was like two hyper controlling matriarchs. Like, she's like, it's either going to work well or it's going to work terrible because either they get on the same page or they don't.
Mhm. Mhm. It'd be
Yeah.
fun. And then the other thing that I felt the need to share is that Becky Raridan wanted everybody to know that Rick's publisher, distributor for his books is Penguin Random House. The company that publishes his books are Disney, but they're the ones that actually distribute it or like send it out to all the bookstores and stuff. She wanted to make sure everybody knew that because they sent a letter to Congress advocating for libraries and to get libraries to get funding again because, of course, they've lost funding because everything wrong is happening right now.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, she wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Rick Riordan's distributor is Penguin Random House, who is trying to get Congress to actually do something for once to help kids who go to libraries. So just like make note of that. If
Yes.
you think that everything they do is Disney, that's not true. And they are trying to like do things because she will sometimes mention like, new writers, you can tell your publisher like what you're not okay with and what you are with like, things that you advocate for or you care about. Like you can make it clear to them how you feel and you there are ways for you to like get out of your publishing deal if they are supporting things that you don't agree with.
Mhm.
So there's that. I was
Yeah.
like, well, that seems like a good thing to make people aware of, since
Yeah.
she clearly wanted everyone to know. And I'm like, I understand. I will share this information. Thank you.
Yeah, she's basically saying we're trying to fight the good fight, even though we've been accepted into this machine of publishing. Because like they do still have to play by the rules if they want
Whoa.
his headphones, which I've connected to my phone once, and literally every time this man leaves the house with his headphones, now it happens. Um, but anyways, yeah. So she's trying to tell us they're on the good side, even though they have been mainstream, and that is both like amazing that they're telling it, and we need to protect them. We need to constantly have eyes on them because that also scares me for them that they are this big couple in both TV and book publishing now, and that they're fighting the fight. So yeah.
Yeah, they know what they're in that way. They know what they're doing. Like people who have those sort of positions of power, um, you want them to use it to do this kind of stuff. Advocate for trans kids and just kids in general and people in general, any marginalized identities, and they have been doing that like ever since they started his imprint, or they
Mhm.
started the imprint because they would do that together. They've been very aggressive with doing that and using Rick in that sort of a way. Like Rick will go and still now, he'll go and do like Q&A sessions with the authors of the people that are putting books out on their imprint and go to bookstores and stuff and do that kind of stuff that he usually doesn't do anymore for
Mhm.
those authors because they know that if he shows up, more people will come. And so they definitely use their like I guess like their platform is a good way to put it, but it feels stupid to call it a platform because it's a much bigger thing when it comes to them.
Mhm.
But they're using it in as like a weapon in a way, like in a way that I want people to. Most of the time they don't, um, but they are, and so that's why I respect them a lot. Is because you can see them if you know if you're paying attention to what they're doing, you can see them making like strategic decisions when it comes to this stuff of
Mhm.
like making it a very obvious like we talked about this like months ago like right after the election happened that there was a an animated show on Disney Plus and they cut out one of the characters being trans
Hmm.
And the girl who voiced the character is like a trans woman, and it was the first time like a trans woman had like a part on a show like that, and so she was talking about how she was like hurt about it, and the only reason I know about that is because Becky talked about it. She
Hmm.
like reposted a thing about it on Threads and was like, I'm paying attention to this. Like she wants us to know like we're watching this stuff. Please don't ever think that we're not, or that we're not trying to do what we can to help people, instead of being like the other kind that is usually in like popular media, which is where they're very hands off. Like I feel like I keep beating up on Suzanne Collins, but I don't care. She wrote an entire thing about a dystopian world, and you've never said anything about anything that actually matters. And you put out a book about a dystopian world about propaganda right now, and you've have you said anything at all about anything? Or are you just putting out that book and like washing your hands of everything? Because that's basically what you're doing, and that's not good enough.
Hmm.
It's not good enough. You have to say something,
Yeah.
anything. Do it already, for the love of God. She won't, because she doesn't actually care. Like, that's like my whole big thing about her is the way that she depicts Gail is tells you what she actually thinks about everyone, because she makes Gail the worst person ever. And Gail is like the person that is like pushing society forward, but she makes him very angry and violent and over aggressive and horrible and mean and selfish. People who do that stuff are not those things. And so I don't expect her to do that, but it's still what somebody should be doing in that sort of role, especially considering that people know who she is around the world.
Hmm.
Um, you could really do something instead of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely nothing. Besides, put out things that will make you money. And make deals with Shein.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I still can't get over that.
I will never get over that. Okay, and so the like thing we wanted to talk about was besides obviously the chapters in the book was child actors or child entertainers, I suppose, is what we'll go with since we're including Justin Bieber in this. Um, and
Yeah.
them just being overworked and very exploited. They're exploited in many different ways, but let's like focus on the overwork part
Yeah.
for today
I think
because
that this conversation, like, it's a good time to have it specifically for the Percy kids because they're in between seasons and everybody is going to be like, go, go, go for season three. We all want Titan's Curse. Titan's Curse is one of the best books in the original five. Like, definitely, we want them to get there. But if we rush them getting there, are we going to get the product we want? Are the kids going to survive it mentally? There's a lot of really heavy stuff in that season. And
yeah,
so, yeah, they still should have time to be kids.
yeah. And like a couple weeks ago I saw a video by somebody who was a younger person that was like they should have filmed season 1 and 2 of Percy Jackson back to back. And I was like, so you want them to work nonstop for 2 years? Because it took 10 months to film season 1 and 8 months to film season 2. And so like do you really want not only also the adults on set and stuff, do you really want to force all those people to work for almost 2 years straight just because you like the way the kids look when they're younger? Like that's
It's weird.
ridiculous. But the thing that made us think about this is that uh, somebody I can't remember who they are.
I can't remember who posted it either, but everybody's talking about Justin because they're talking about Justin and Haley. That's not what we want to get into. I don't care about their marriage. I don't care about whatever culty things may be happening there. What I care about is this is a kid who we have evidence of because of his whatever documentary he put out with his first world tour that he was literally working himself while sick, doing multiple shows, like hesitant to put off any shows, but also doing more shows than most regular adult, like singers, songwriters, like rappers, all of that. And it was crazy to watch. Like when you see how much work this guy did as a like 15, 16-year old,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah, and I will say that when we thought about covering it, I was thinking about it for a couple weeks, but I was like, this is such a huge thing. I want to make sure if we do it, we're going to do it in a way that isn't exploitative, honestly. Because when I was searching for it this weekend on YouTube, I just put his name into YouTube and saw like what videos showed up, and they were mostly ones that were showing videos and stuff of him where he was very obviously like not okay. And I
Yeah.
was like, rule number one, if you actually give a crap about anybody, is to not repost things of them in some sort of distress. Like, those people do not want those things shared across the internet. They don't want people seeing them. When they feel better, they're going to feel really bad about the fact that everyone around the internet was posting this stuff. Like, part of the things with Justin Bieber that is so fucking wild is seeing that not only that people are starting to like gossip about him and his wife now, when it's like that's like the least important thing that you could possibly be talking about with him right now, in like the whole stupid Selena Gomez thing. Like, oh my god, stop talking about that.
They're over it.
um
They're over it.
yeah, and then but then also it's the fact that like when he will be going on his Instagram or what have you, and obviously not doing okay, all the comments are like, hi Justin, notice me Justin. And it's like, or like people making jokes about him, and it's like you're literally watching somebody have a mental breakdown the same way that Amanda Bynes had one in the past. And in the past, people also made fun of her the
Mhm.
entire time. She was like a meme that people used to make fun of on Twitter, and it made me really mad when they did that back then, and it still makes me mad seeing this sort of thing now.
Mhm.
And so we wanted to at least try to talk about it from a perspective of um, kids, like kids in general want to like please adults. And
Mhm.
especially when you're a kid that's in the industry, you're like living your dream. You want to make the adults around you happy because you want to be successful and you want to keep doing it.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of like looking back at Justin Bieber, the fact that his mom was posting videos of him singing on YouTube is the most gigantic red flag of all time.
Mhm.
That she was purposely putting him out there when he was like, his first record came out when he was 15. And so he was even younger than that when she was putting him on the internet and was getting all this huge amount of attention. It's just like your child is in middle school and you're
Mhm.
putting him out on the internet on purpose. Like, she had to be the one doing that because YouTube was not, that was around the time that like some of like the first big creators started getting huge, but that was before. I don't even think you could be like monetized on YouTube back then. Like, there was many years where you could literally post anything on YouTube because there wasn't even any monetization or a way to even make money off of it. I think that was around that time for him too. And so that's already like a makes you wonder like what's going on here. Um, but it's also just a thing of kids want to continue doing what they're doing because they love it and they
Mhm.
enjoy it, and they are more likely to make the adults want to make the adults in their life happy. And like kids are just like that. Like, a lot of like the clips that got to me the most in that video that you sent me was that Justin was lying to his doctor about
Mhm.
how sick he was because he wanted to do the shows because he felt bad for his fans having to cancel when he
Mhm.
like couldn't even like he was like laying on the couch looking really sick,
Yeah.
and the his voice coach was trying to basically pressure him into performing anyway. And because that's the worst person ever to be around somebody like that. But that is something that I've thought of in general about Hollywood stuff, because even though we love like the Percy Jackson set, like when I watched the documentary, the way that they described why they loved Walker was that he didn't complain and that he worked really hard and he was willing to do whatever they asked. And I was like, that could be a problem. Like, that could be a big problem one day. And I was just like, I'm glad that you all love this child, but I'm also kind of concerned about how the way that you say that you love him is that he said he did whatever you said and like didn't stop, or like, the one thing that like Adam Copeland said in there somewhere was in one of the interviews on that documentary was that he said like, oh, he didn't complain or anything when I was teaching him how to do like the fight scene. And I was like, if he would have like not wanted to take a break or something, that wouldn't be complaining because he's a child. That's not complaining, but like that's the way that they kind of like presented as like, oh, Walker didn't complain. He just did whatever people said. Um, and that's why the crew and everybody loved him because he didn't show feelings. And I
Mhm.
was just like, okay, like it sounds fine now when he's a child, but I'm like, how do you tell the difference then as you get older though? From an environment like this set that I think is run by people that know that children are children and want them to be able to balance that versus like an abusive set who expects them to do that stuff and doesn't let them do that stuff and doesn't let them take breaks and treats them badly. How can they tell the difference
Mhm.
between like what how to act on set or what is good and what is bad? Like how do they figure out that line like with the Justin Bieber stuff of him just like asking if he could eat McDonald's and his voice coach not letting him and literally like manipulating and gaslighting him about like you don't want to do that because you want to be an adult and you want to perform and if you don't do that you're if you eat this stuff you're not going to be able to sing tonight and stuff like making him feel really guilty and responsible for just wanting to be like a kid and eat literally eat chicken nuggets and he wasn't allowed to do that when he was 15 and so it's that kind of a thing of like how do you teach those kids how to stand up for themselves when they realize that they're in a bad situation? How are they ever going to figure out that they're even in a bad situation until it's like really far along? If they're basically taught from the time that they were kids on set to just do whatever the like the director and the producers want, and that's the way to make them happy. Um, that's the stuff that I like that I think about, and so um, and there's so many documentaries right now coming out about like the YouTube documentary thing that I am not gonna watch because I would die if I did. Um, I'm not even gonna watch all the videos about Justin Bieber because I know it would make me really upset to watch more than only one, like TikTok video that I watched of him. Um, but I don't like those documentaries either because it feels like they're just making like a show, like I said, like a performance out of horrible trauma. It just feels really weird how those things come out and people talk about it for like a week or two and then they just like move on and like
Yeah.
nothing really changes or anything. And it's the only time that people get attention is if you do a documentary like that, but it's so short that it just feels I will always be upset that the kids from the eight passengers family, Ruby, her kids, that they did that documentary because they wanted the public to stop saying that their dad was involved in the abuse. And it's like you guys speculating on this family this way force children to come forward and tell very traumatic stories. There is absolutely no way they wanted those stories to be shared across the entire internet, but they felt like they had to in order to take like some control over like people talking about their life. And
Yeah.
they shouldn't have had to tell those stories to get people to like they didn't even see them as people really because they're still like sharing those stories and videos as if just talking about it in the same way that they would like characters on a TV show.
Mhm.
So I don't like that stuff, but I wanted to look into some of like the rules, laws, whatever when it comes to kids and especially comes to like their money
Mhm.
because that's like a thing that happens every single time, it seems, with kids and who are in the spotlight. Like I saw a video a couple weeks ago of Macaulay Culkin
Mhm.
saying that part of the reason why he hasn't spoken to his dad in 30 years and no one talks to him, his dad doesn't even acknowledge that Macaulay Culkin is his son. Like he'll say like, I don't know who that is because his dad made him do acting. And as soon as his parents got divorced, he stopped acting because he didn't actually want to do it. And I guess like the thing of what I was just saying is that um when and what I'm about to go into with like how much kids can like legally act is that this kind of stuff is like not easy for kids to do, but if you love doing it, then it's worth it obviously, right? What
Yeah.
if you don't? Like, what if you don't love it anymore? Like, what if you don't really like it and your parents, like, kind of pushed you into it? Or what if you did like it at a time, but then it became, like, a business and that, like, sucked all the fun out of it? Like, how, like, but now they're responsible for, like, their entire family's money. And so it's like they're like stuck. It would really suck doing all of this work and doing all of this stuff that they do, um, if they weren't even enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just horrible. And so one job I didn't even know existed that I now wish in some like alternate universe I could do is that there's something called a minors coordinator, which is like literally somebody's job is just to like be on set and like take care of like the kids. Like I would actually literally take care of kids if I did that job. The way that they describe this job is more like they like get the kids to show up on set on time, and because there are like restrictions with their time,
Hmm.
um, and everything, but they basically like, try to keep track of all of them. There's like a certain amount you have to have like one per like every like 6 kids or something like that in
Hmm.
order to like keep track of all of them on set. And I feel like, especially considering that we talk about Percy Jackson, but especially when you consider next season,
Yeah.
um, most of the people that they're going to be adding are not going to be, they're all going to be kids. Like there are going to be some, probably some gods, like Apollo is
Hmm.
will probably look like an adult, but like Artemis and Zoe and Bianca and Nico, any of the hunters, none of those people, Rachel,
Hmm.
none of those people are going to be, they're all going to be like at oldest like 16 probably. And or like that's what their character's supposed to look like. They might be like 18 or something, like Tamara who plays Thalia is or something like that, or Dior. But they're all like young is what I'm saying. And so there's going to be a lot of like kids like that, even more than there was the last couple years
Hmm.
on set. And so I think it's interesting that Hollywood has a minors coordinator in order to keep track of kids. I would love to do that if they actually let me help those kids. Like,
Yeah.
and actually let me help them like know how to figure out like what's real and what's not, because it's like when you're acting things out in doing things like that, it feels real when you're doing it. That's part of like what's hard about performing like that, is that your body doesn't necessarily know that it's not real. You have to like, get there. You have to get to that place in your mind. And that's why I think about, especially with like Titan's Curse, but I even think about that with scenes they've already filmed. Like Walker had to film a scene of him being slowly suffocated to death and then
Hmm.
like coming back alive and realizing that he was still alive.
Yeah.
Um, and other scenes, but that's the one that I thought about when they were filming. Like, I don't want to think about whatever he was thinking about that made him get that upset, or like made him like get to that place. He obviously found something, but it's that kind of stuff. Or in the same scene, like Leah having to figure out a way to like get those emotions of her like screaming about how her friend is about to die and she doesn't want him to die.
Hmm.
And there's somebody there that could help them, and he's at first refusing to help her.
Yeah.
Um, and things like that. But the general like breakdown, like when since Percy Jackson is filmed, I looked up things in California at first, because I was like, technically everything is like through a production company like Disney in California, but they film in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And so I'm pretty sure, just from things I've heard some of the kids mention in interviews and stuff, that they follow the like Canadian laws or guidelines for child actors, which would make sense. It is where it's one of those things of they either go by what the production company is from or where they're actually physically are. And then so I think they have to do it physically where they are. Um, but just to like go through it, like in Vancouver, um, this is just so weird. They can the how much they can film a day. This is so the reason why I wanted to talk about, both of us wanted to talk about this especially, is because one thing that people tend to say about Hollywood or like kid actors compared to like ones in on like YouTube that have like no protections, is that like, oh, child actors have like rules and regulations and laws about how much they can be on set. And I'm like, those suck though. They still are nowhere near good enough. And I need people to like actually understand that the idea that these are better and that there isn't like really anyone talking about making these sort of things better for children actors on set is like upsetting because of how many documentaries have come out in the last couple of years about how there still is a lot of exploitation and overworking and taking advantage of kids and their money and all this kind of stuff that happens. But
Hmm.
because from 15 days old to 2 years old, they can work for 8 hours.
Jesus.
Um, 3 to 5 years old, 8 hours. 6 to 11. Imagine a 7-year-old being on set for 8 hours and having to work. A kindergartner being on set for 8 hours and like contractually and supposed to be working. And the longest amount of time is 12 to 16 years old. 10 hours is the longest they can work. They can also work 2 hours overtime, which like, because this is kind of funny. My source for like at least the Percy Jackson stuff is Walker.
Hmm.
He is the one that talks about this stuff in interviews. None of the, at least from what I've seen so far, the other kids don't talk specifics. I think he just likes to talk about it because
Yeah.
he loves doing it. And so he's just like, da da da. And I'm like listening to all this because I find this stuff interesting about production stuff anyway. But I'm pretty sure that when they do Percy Jackson, they're on set for 12 hours because because part of the whole thing with their time is that includes them getting to set and like being in makeup and doing like their hair and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And because I feel like this is like a comparison to like the horrible jobs that I've still work and just like corporate jobs that people have had to work like you've had to do in the past. It's
Hmm.
like when you're at work and you're like in like a bullshit like meeting or whatever, you're still working.
Yeah.
Like I am at work. You made me come to work. Even if I'm sitting here listening to you give me like a PowerPoint presentation on Teams about some HR policy, I'm still working right now. I'm still having to pay attention. If I wasn't at work right now, I would be able to like relax, and I can't do that right now. And
Hmm.
so even though these kids are like sitting in like a makeup chair, like getting their hair and makeup done, they are still at work. They
Yeah.
still have to be there on time. They still have to be there earlier than they normally would be so that they can get all of that stuff done. And so it still is considered work, and so that's why it comes out as part of their time. And they can have for 12 to 16 years old, which are most of the ages of the kids on Percy Jackson. They can work for 60 minutes before they have to have a break,
Hmm.
and their minimum break is 10 minutes. And so for other kids, it's younger, it's a little bit shorter, like 45 minutes if you're 6 to 11.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years old, it's 30 minutes. 15 days to 2 years old, they can work for 15 minutes at a time. And then they have to have like a 20-minute break. But I guess the overall thing is like to actually think this through. Like imagine like these kids are on set, they're filming scenes for an entire hour. Like, I say this as someone who's like creative and like loved doing I did stage crew of theater when I was a kid, which is part of why I like learning about productions. I was that person that when DVDs would come out would watch all of like the behind the scenes stuff and loved watching like I immediately as soon as I stopped watching the 8th episode of Percy Jackson immediately watched their behind the scenes documentary because I find learning things like that of how things work and all that kind of stuff really interesting.
Yeah.
And so 60 minutes is actually a really long time to be performing without really like a break. Like yeah, obviously they have to cut sometimes and like get the scene like ready to go again, but still like 60 minutes having to like focus
Yes.
is a long time because they have at least with the Percy Jackson cast, there have been videos of them on set and you can see them trying to like focus to like stay in character, or at least I know Walker does that because
Yeah.
there are videos of him doing that. Like that one scene that I try not to think about of when they were at like the boardwalk, and I try not to think about it because Sally was there at the same time that Luke was there, and I'm pretty sure that's like the end of the season, and it freaks me out to imagine what's going on there.
Hmm.
But there are some videos of them before they started filming that scene, and Leah and Daniel or Tyson are sitting there like talking and laughing and making jokes and stuff like that. And Walker's over by himself talking to like the director. And
Yeah.
you can just like there's videos, a couple videos like that of him doing stuff like that, like trying to stay focused because yeah, he has the most lines out of everybody, and that's also just seems to be his like personality in that sort of a way that the other kids can like joke around and stuff like that
Mhm.
and still stay in character, but just from things that he has said, he doesn't do that. And so if he doesn't do that, that means for like an hour straight, he's like trying to focus really hard on what
Mhm.
he's doing and staying in that mind. And a lot of the scenes that Percy does, he's not having a happy, fun time. So those are hard things to be like staying in your mind. Like he talks about when he did the chair scene in the fifth episode that he would just like go off to the side and like do push-ups because it was just a way to like let out like energy in his body, but also like stay. He said like he felt bad that he couldn't really talk to Leah because if he talked to her, that would like he literally said it would bring me out of my a depressed zone. And that's the way that he described it is like I had to stay in a depressed zone when I filmed that scene. And if I talked to people, anyone, not even just her, like the cast and the other crew and stuff, it would have taken him out of that place because he would have started like joking around with them. And so he purposely put himself by himself to stay in that place. And so
Yeah.
like imagine being in the mental zone of knowing that you're you're filming a scene whenever you start filming of you being suffocated to death and having to like stay in that like place for at least a day or two when you're going showing up on set every day. And so working for an hour and only having a 10-minute break is not that long.
No.
It's not long enough for them to really like get away from the scene enough to like relax again and feel like refreshed and then like come back and get and be ready to like go back in again. And then the other thing with tutoring in school is that for the ages of 6 to 11, you can you have to have 3 hours per day of like a tutor on set. And that is true for ages of like 12 to 16 or to 18. Um, One thing that I know from Walker saying this is that they have to they have to be taken away from filming for 20 minutes before it like counts as time that they've been doing school. And
Oh.
so and they have to get it up to 3 hours a day. Like they have to do 3 hours of school a day, but it's only in like small little increments. But I said this to you, it's like the idea of like, it's not like they're actually at school. They're like on set in the middle of everything. And so it'd be like the idea of like, I work at a soul sucking job at United Healthcare. Somebody please save me from this job. I talk to people and they literally, ugh, God, hold on. I almost cried like 5 times today. I'm not even kidding. Because of people just yelling at me about stuff that's not my fault. But like in that sort of a job, like I'm working from home, and it'd be like if I was working from home, and then they were like, okay, you can like go in your kitchen for a half hour and like read this binder of like HR things, and you have a half hour to read it, and then you have to come back and keep working. And it's like I'm still like at work. Like I'm not like able to separate myself from it. I'm still at work and I'm trying to focus on this thing because I know I only have a certain amount of time to do it. And but I'm also just been working. Like I don't know if this is just me or like a autistic thing, I don't know. But whenever ever since I was like a teenager and I got a job, it always takes me a couple hours after I get done with work to like come down from doing it. Like whenever I get out of work, I usually like will like go on a walk and like listen to music or go and like eat something right away, and that's me like decompressing from work.
Yeah, like a
And
transition.
yeah, like we're not good at like transitions, and so it probably takes me longer than other people do, but that's just like a normal thing of like when you're at like school, you are at school, the only reason why you're there is to go to class.
Yeah.
And so being able to go to class all day and no, you have to focus on what you're doing and like do your homework and do all this stuff is a lot easier. Being on like a set in the middle of all of this stuff, knowing that like the director can come get you at any time to pull you back into doing your job, because also your job includes like memorizing lines.
Yeah.
Um,
And
like
that's a lot of mental power.
yeah, and the thing with like the kids is that like the thing to keep in mind when it comes to like production is that yes, because they are children and they actually cast children for these parts, the seasons take longer to film, like I said. Like season 1 took 10 months, season 2 took 8 months. Every season will probably take around like 8 months because there's always going to be kids under the age of 18 that are a big part of the cast. But man, I lost my train of thought, damn it. That happens. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that like when you're on, oh, that's what I was saying, is that it takes like, around like a month probably to film a full episode, like around that time, because of how long they film for 8 episodes. But it's like what I don't know what they're supposed to do when like they're filming one episode. They have to have like the lines memorized for that episode, but they're also at some point getting the script for the next episode, and they have to start memorizing those lines for the next episode as well. And the kids that have the most lines are the youngest ones. And so they have to like somehow balance that and also do school and also just like be a child. That's just like a lot. That's a lot. And so what I'm saying is that 3 hours a day on set in when you only are going like for 20 minutes at a time, it would be very hard to focus in the middle of all of that stuff, especially knowing that you never know when they're going to come to like pull you back out. And so they would be more focused on like learning their lines. And like I don't know how you could be like working on like a scene like that and then suddenly stop after like an hour and be like, okay, you have to go do school for 20 minutes, and like your mind is still on that thing you were just doing.
Yeah,
especially because you're like passionate about what you're doing, and so you can't just like leave it. And so that would be really hard to focus on school and be able to really do anything like that on set. And that is like the only time that they get like a break, I suppose. But especially with this set, it's weird to think about because some of the kids now are over the age of 18.
yeah.
And so like Walker and Leah have to do school, but like last season nobody else did. Like all like literally everyone else was
Yeah, it's just because Dior turned 18 the summer before they started filming.
Yep, and Tamara was 19 and Charlie's like 20 and Daniel's
Everyone
like
was already 18 for the first season, right?
yeah. Yeah. And so it's like they're the only ones that have to go in there and do it. That would be socially like a difficult situation to have to do, the only ones that have to
Well, and not only
balance
that, but they're not, like, I'm gonna guess that Walker and Leah are not in the same grade level learning the same material. So it's essentially like virtual learning. And
Yeah.
I am one of the many parents who had to watch my kids suffer through virtual learning. William hated it. Like, I wasn't one of the kids posting pictures of him crying at his desk, but like there were times where he was that frustrated of I can't concentrate. Nobody on screen is doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm looking over here and looking over here. Like, I can't stop playing with the desk. This is not my environment where I do this. And so, like, literally right now, he's writing an argumentative essay for his language arts class, and he's writing it against, like, online learning because that's how much this kid has been affected by just the concept of, like, being interrupted while you're working, like, not being in a good environment to learn.
Yeah, and I only know from, like I said, Walker, is him saying that his mom is the one that wrote his, like, curriculum when he's on set doing school. And so Leah, I'm sure, has somebody like that in her life doing that too.
Yeah.
But it's just like the general idea that like the schooling is based off of like his mom is not a teacher. As far as I know, at least. And I don't know anything. So maybe she really was a teacher, but I don't think she was. And so it's like, okay, that I'm not, that's just like somebody that's trying to learn how to figure out curriculum for their son.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to like Walker in Leah's age is like, COVID happened when they were like 11.
Yeah.
Like when Walker started trying to act was right when COVID happened. And so like COVID happened, they couldn't go to school anyway, and then he just started acting. And so ever since he was like 11 or 12, hasn't been in like normal school for longer than like probably 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
And that's just like a very disruptive thing. Like the thing, the post that I made that I wanted to say again is just like the stuff with this kind of stuff of why it would be very difficult for child actors to transition is like imagine you're on set where everyone treats you like you're an adult, like you have responsibilities. You have to
Mhm.
show up on time every day. You have to learn your lines every day. If you don't learn your lines and you mess up a scene, all these people are all watching you not do it the right way, and it's up to you to figure out how to do it. They can't move on without you figuring out how. That's very like adult sort of like pressure to feel that usually you don't feel until you're much older,
Yeah.
and they're figuring that all of that stuff out. They have a lot of responsibilities. They they like had to figure out how to like feed themselves, take care of themselves, rest enough. Yeah, their parents are there, but it's still a much more like independent sort of atmosphere than there would be otherwise. Like some of the laws and stuff in this that I didn't even talk about yet is that like parents can't be like right on set like that. There's like certain places where they can be so that there isn't like those sort of situations between like the parents and like the people on set like not getting along and stuff, to keep
Mhm.
them more separate, to help like kids be able to like focus and things like that too.
Yeah.
And so it's not like the parents are like right there with them all the time, and so they're still like kind of, you know, living like more independently. And then imagine living like that for 8 months, like they just did for season two. And then you go back to high school where you're not allowed to leave a classroom to go to the bathroom unless your teacher says it's okay.
Yeah.
And you are told you have to do busy work for homework.
Mhm.
That doesn't even matter. Like I didn't do that stuff when I was in high school because I was like, this doesn't matter. And like they know definitively that it doesn't matter because they only do 3 hours of school a day and they can still do fine with like actual normal school. So they obviously don't need to be there for 8 hours a day. They know for a fact you don't, but when they come home, they have to be there that long anyway, and they're not allowed to do anything at all. And it's like, which one is real? Like, am I able to be like a small adult where I can take care of myself, or am I such a little child that I can't even go to the bathroom by myself? Like which one? That is just such like a polar opposite thing. Like no wonder why their brains hurt when
Yeah.
they're trying to figure that stuff out. I don't know how they even figure that stuff out. Like kids, we do a lot when we have to try to like survive, but it's still like a wild that that kind of stuff is like happening with them. One thing I wanted to point out was this is something that I said was like a good thing for the Percy Jackson like production that they did. Now I know they did this because they legally have to, not because they chose to, which is that for like auditions, like for wardrobe fittings, like when they have to take pictures for like the new for like the to promote like the new season, when they have
Yeah.
to do like press and stuff like that, they have to do them on days when they like don't work. There's literally like a law that says that you have to do it either on the weekends or during their school breaks so that they don't miss school. And I'm like, I thought they were just being nice of why they didn't do um like casting and things like that, and outside of like Walker's like spring break last year. But it's like no, because they legally have to.
Yeah.
Like that's why they did it. And I'm not saying any of this to be like this show sucks, but I am just saying the fact of like I thought they did that because they were just being nice, but in fact it's actually a law that they have to do. And it's probably why when it comes to like season 3, they're probably not going to do any real casting until the summertime when they're out of school again,
Mhm.
because the summertime they can do it, and they don't really have very long amount of days off anymore
Yeah.
for the rest of the school year until it's over.
And besides,
Um,
if they're going to film on location for Titan's Curse, we need it to be winter. So we want
mhm.
them to be preparing this summer and not working.
Yeah, and the other thing is like that they have to have a certain amount of time off. Like they have to have like 12 hours off between like when they leave and then they come back the next morning.
Hmm.
So with Percy stuff, it was like they had to be there at like 7:30 in the morning, something like that, and they would leave by like 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
Um, and basically like go home, like probably sleep, and then like come back and do it all like the next day. And
Yeah.
so the the other thing that is like the most important thing I think to talk about when it comes to this stuff is like the Coogan accounts. and their money, because this stuff makes me so mad. And this is like what made us like want to talk about it, really, was because of like Justin Bieber's mom made a lot of money off of him, and he obviously paid a lot for that. There's endless stories of child entertainers of some sort, like losing a lot of money or not having any money. Like a lot of like the Piper Raquel documentary. When we were talking about those kids, I was like, how are those kids supposed to get any money when their parents probably run all the money they get from like their YouTube channels and things like that? They would have to start over from zero, and they could do that because they have a big enough following. But it would still be really hard, especially as a kid, if your parent has been taking care of that stuff your whole life. You
Yeah.
don't know any of that stuff. And when you're a teenager, you can't even get like a checking account without your parent like signing with you to
Yeah.
like say that it's okay for you to get one. And so like how do you do that without emancipating yourself first? And that's a whole long process. It's all very complicated because children don't have any rights. Have you noticed this yet? Like they don't have any rights. They're like these laws say that it is perfectly legal for a 2-year-old child to work for 8 hours a day on a movie set.
Hmm.
And and people are like, "Yeah, movie sets are safer now for kids." I'm like, "What?" Oh my God. And so the stuff with like the money that makes me like so mad is this is something that I've always thought. And so if you don't know what Coogan accounts are, there are these things that was made based by a child actor many, many, many years ago, being like financially destroyed by their parents stealing all of their money and abusing them horribly. And so they named the accounts after them. And so what they basically are meant to be is that a kid, when they're doing like acting, they get a certain amount of money for the work that they're doing. And so this is an account where legally they have to put a certain amount into that account that isn't a trust that they can then access when they're 18, and they can use whoever they want. The Coogan accounts are something that people bring up a lot when they talk about family channels and like YouTube, because there aren't accounts like that. But can I just say, these accounts are horrible also, because they are set up in the way that for a Coogan account, 15% of the money is saved for the child when they turn 18 and put it on accounts. So 85% of the money from those accounts are just given to their parents, and they can legally do whatever they want with it. And this is not anything to say that like any of the kids on this set or any other set are like being harmed by their parents or anything like that. It is just, this is like legally what is allowed. Like this is perfectly legal. There is nothing that anyone can do to like stop this. So you looked up like on Google like what Google thinks
Yeah.
Walker Scobell makes every episode of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Google thinks that he made $100,000 an episode, which probably is somewhat accurate, considering like how much money this show makes. And so if they do 8 episodes in season 1, for instance, that's $800,000 that he made when he was 13 in one season of work. But also, because he is 13 when he made this money, legally he is allowed to get $250,000 out of all of that work, and his parents get like the rest, like $650,000.
Yeah.
And so like I know that people, especially like I've been very poor my whole life, $250,000 is like wild to think about, but like I need everyone to like think about this. Just Walker had 10 days off for the entire 10 months that they were filming season 1. On average, 1 day off a month. Like, I just told you how much they were on set. At least 10 hours a day for 10 months, 5 days a week for 10 months, every single day. And he was learning lines, memorizing lines, learning fight choreography, doing stunts, doing all of these things. He was in every single scene, basically, of the entire show. He never got a break. When he did get a break, he would go in the writer's room and read scripts that weren't finished yet, and he would go and watch scenes that he wasn't in. When there
Mhm.
were a couple of them, he would go and watch them. He watched Arian film a scene without him. He went and watched like little baby Percy film a scene without him. A lot of times, the like star of a production, when they really enjoy what they're doing, do stuff like that, um, because they feel responsible for like the whole thing. I get it, and it's honestly a good quality in general to have. But it's more like that child worked 10 months of his life. He left his job, like his life, his siblings, his home, his school, everyone that he ever talked to at home for 10 months of his life, worked 10 hours a day every single day for 10 months. And his parents get 85% of the money he made during that time. His parents didn't do that.
Yeah.
His parents like what took turns being on set, sure, but they watched him work. He was the one actually working. He was the one actually doing all of this stuff. They weren't, and this is nothing against them at all. It's just like this is how the system is set up, that they get the majority of the money because they're his parents, but he doesn't get that. It should be the other way around.
It
He
should be.
should have 85% of the money saved for him. He worked his ass off doing that. He is the star of this production. He is the face of Percy Jackson, the Olympians. His face is everywhere. He has people fixated on everything he does on social media. They are obsessing not only about him, about his family, about anyone who's ever met him before. He has been put in this position. He is out there all over the place. They made 3 billion minutes watched of that show last year, and he gets $250,000 out of that legally. That's the most that he can make. Maybe his parents will be, ethical, and they will actually give him that money when he is 18, but there is no guarantee that he will. The only amount that he is guaranteed is 15% of what he made, and they made way more than that off of the work that he did. And they will continue making more, way more off of the work that he did. And I know that he likely will make money from like residuals and things like that from people watching and things like that isn't included in that. But it's just a general idea that when a child actor is working, they get paid every week. And so every week when he was doing all of that work, where he was working, if he was working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, he was working 50 hours. He was working more than me, and he was 13 doing like really physical hard like mentally like challenging sort of work, because none of the scenes on Percy are exactly easy. They're all emotionally challenging to try to depict on screen. And so he's doing that stuff for 50 hours a week every week, and the money that is being put in his account, 85% of it is going to his parents and not him. And
Yeah.
it's just that there is something very wrong with that. And it's not just him, like all the other kids on set were like that too, obviously. They likely made around the same amount of money that he did. But it's just the general idea with child entertainers and children in general is that people act like children are not human. And like just the idea that a child could work 50-hour work weeks and that they are only allowed to have 15% of that money saved for them in the future, no adult would ever put up with that. Like if you showed up at work and said, you only get 15% of your paycheck and I get to keep the other 85% because I'm here when you're working and I gave you a job, and so that's how this is going to work and there's nothing that you can do about it, you would never take that job. But when it's children that are conditioned to want to like make adults happy, that is like the best that they can get. And if they would say too much about not liking that, then are people going to want to work with them? Are they going to see them as they're complaining now?
They're too difficult.
If they're like get up, like if I have days when like days like today where I'm upset about something else because life just happens. You get some things just happen, especially when you're working a lot, when like if I sometimes have like I had a job interview a couple weeks ago for another position at my work. The night before I did that, I like couldn't sleep for a while because I was nervous about doing it, because I was having to like present something in front of a bunch of people. Like imagine knowing that you're going to do like a huge scene that millions of people around the world have been wanting to see in Percy Jackson, something done well. You know that millions of people are wanting you to deliver this scene, and you're going to have to do it tomorrow. Like, imagine trying to sleep knowing that. Like, no wonder why Walker looked panicked when he was thinking about Titan's Curse, because he
Yeah.
was like, no one's ever done Titan's Curse, and now I have to be the one to do it. I have to be the one to like deliver this book that everybody loves so much. What? And it's just like that sort of pressure. Like, of course they're not going to sleep that well. They're sometimes going to have days where they're just tired or whatever. Are they allowed to like just be human when they're on set and like get upset or like snap at people because they're tired or whatever without people being like, "Oh, you're being a brat."
We know they're not. Like, we know
Yeah.
the realistic answer is no, even though we don't want it to be, because, like, look at the thing we talked about with Ryan Reynolds, where there's that clip of him talking about, like, oh, my daughter didn't want to say this line, so we started saying, we're going to replace you. Like, that's going to get into a little kid's head. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
And
replaceable. If I don't do well enough, if I complain too much, they're going to replace me.
Yeah, and overall, I think the thing of what I wanted to try to say with this whole thing, and you too, but this is specifically what I was thinking about,
Mhm.
is that like I feel like for kids that are doing this sort of stuff, like the Justin Bieber thing, anyone that you ever see, is that they are having a dream come true, right? This is something that they've wanted their entire lives. They've worked a lot to make it happen. It doesn't matter that they're kids, they've worked a lot to make it happen. Don't be that person. And
Yeah.
like disregard how much they work just because they're younger than you.
Yeah.
And so it's like they work really hard to do this. They're finally getting like the dream that they've wanted to do, that they've worked really hard for to get. And so I feel like it would be very hard to talk about the parts of it that is difficult. And like because it's like there are a lot of parts of this stuff that are hard, that are challenging, that are like difficult to deal with. And the thing I think about is like, can they talk about that with anybody? Like if they're having like a hard time like balancing school and like lines and life and are just stressed out or dealing with whatever, can they go to anybody and say like this is really hard? Like it's really hard that people are like tagging me in all these things on social media and spreading all these rumors about me, and I can't say anything because that will make it worse. Or like it's hard that I am showing up to set today when I don't feel good or when I'm tired and I have to do this scene that's going to be really hard for me to do and I don't know how to do it. Like to talk about Walker again, there was an interview he did at the Emmys where he quite literally said like what they asked him what was the difference between filming season 1 and season 2, and he said when he filmed season 1 he was pretending that he was confident because he was actually terrified. Like those were his verbatim words. He was
Yeah.
terrified and did not feel confident in what he was doing at all and basically just acted like he knew what he was doing until he actually felt like he knew what he was doing. And he was saying season 2 wasn't like that. I actually went into it feeling like confident that I could handle it. And I was just like, yeah, it's that kind of stuff that I talk about of like, is he ever allowed to be like having all of this pressure on me and having to be the one to be in charge and be like the leader of everybody on this set every day when I am a kid and I have done hardly anything in Hollywood and I'm somehow the one that everybody goes to. Like the leader can't get upset. The leader like can't show that they're having a hard time with stuff because then it's like everyone else looks at you and they don't know what to do because
Yeah.
you're the one that's like making everybody keep going. You're the one keeping everybody in a good mood and like making everything move forward. And so like if you have a bad day, are you allowed to do that or like can you even do that without somebody
So much
popping
like
up and being like this is your dream? Don't like be selfish or don't like disregard your dream. This is what you've always wanted. Blah 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 stuff that people do anyway.
Yeah, I just keep thinking it like that sounds literally just like Percy. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean it's very fitting that he's playing this character, but
Yes.
I have all the pressure on me and everybody's looking at me and I'm nervous and don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's I think it's so funny how people are like, "Oh, Walker is like Percy." When I heard that, I was like, "Uh-oh." Like I don't know what to think about that.
No.
Because I'm like Percy. What do you mean he's like Percy? I don't want him to be that much like Percy. But he did read, like, to, like, put this in perspective, he did read the first 5 books 6 times before he was ever even cast as Percy.
I don't
So,
know.
yeah, at when he was 12. was when he read it. He read it from the ages of 8 to 13. He read the first 5 books 6 times. And so, yeah. Yeah. And so there is probably some stuff there about whatever that is. Who knows? But it's just the general idea of this stuff is supposed to be like what keeps child actors safer.
Hmm.
And it's not good at all. There's so much stuff that is just like
Yeah.
missing that they need. And I can see now how easy it would be for not only kids to be like financially exploited by people around them, but also just like physically like exhausted. Because if you're like conditioned to do what the adults want you to do, um, like I said before, you're a kid, you're still like developmentally aging, you're still figuring this stuff out. You don't really know how to notice what's going on in your body. And when you're a kid and on a movie set, they don't really want you to because they want you to just like do what you need to do and get it done and ignore that stuff. And it's just like that kind of toxic sort of work culture stuff, but with like literal kids.
No, children.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's why there's so many bad stories about kids in Hollywood at all in general. And that's not even including the stuff about people like trying to get them to like drink or do drugs or do adult things when they shouldn't because they think it's funny to watch a kid do stuff like that when they're much younger. Um, but it's just no wonder why there's so many stories like this about kids. And like these people imagine child actors to be more protected than other kids, but they're not really protected. I will never get over the fact, like I remember when I found out that the Coogan accounts that they only save 15% of their money, I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, like my general philosophy as a parent, and I like to think this would not change if William suddenly became a millionaire on his own somehow, is his money is his. My money is ours. You know, like our money is ours. I do not let that child pay for food. I do not let him pay for basic necessities. If he's spending his money on anything, it better be on something fun. You know, do something stupid. Buy a new video game. They're $80 now, okay? You need the money for them anyway.
Well, and then because it also just makes this weird environment that like even if the parents aren't like the abusive kind of parents that are doing it because they like their kids making lots of money and are using their kids' money to like live extravagant lifestyles, even
Yeah.
if they're not doing that, there's just like a natural pressure I would imagine as the kid making all of this money for your family that like you want to keep doing that because you like being able to do that for your family. And that just like imagine like being a kid like that working on like a set for many months like that and then going home and it's like what kind of family dynamic is that where like the one of the kids in like the family dynamic is making like millions of dollars. And
Yeah.
so it's like how do you I feel like it must be very easy for families in that situation to treat the kid that is in that role almost like another, like a parent, or
Yeah.
not like a parent, but like an adult. Like, oh, this is, even though they're a kid, they're also in this like very adult world and living and making these adult decisions and stuff like that most of the time. So I don't have to worry about him very much. I don't have to pay attention to what they're doing as much as the other kids that are actually like more normal kids. And I feel like that it would be very easy for that sort of dynamic to happen in a family of like, oh, that kid is like off doing all this big stuff and doing all these great things and they're the ones giving us all this extra money and doing whatever. If they can handle, doing school on set, they'll be fine with doing school at home. I don't need to check in on them very much. And like one of the things I wanted to mention about this stuff that is always there's every time you talk about situations like this, there's always like an opposite thing of
Hmm.
like we just talked about kids being overworked. But I will say that on there's a documentary I watched called Child Actor that's on Hulu that Demi Lovato, Drew Barrymore, Allison Stoner, Raven Simone, maybe a couple other people I'm not remembering, but those were like the main people who were in it that came out last year. And they all talked about how the worst time was when they went back home because the come down after being on set like that, doing something that you love every day and going back to like just normal life where you had to go to school, they would get very depressed. And they said like that's usually when like entertainers start like drinking or doing drugs or get addicted to those things or substances or just like unhealthy behaviors like eating disorders or things like that because they're so depressed when they're back at home, and it's like nobody probably notices that it's happening because they just look at them like they're not like an actual kid. And especially the dynamic that they can't really talk about what they do on set with people at home,
Mm-hmm.
because it just makes people feel weird. And so it's like they must be thinking all these things and they can't talk about it with anyone. And so even though we talk about how we don't want them to do Titan's Curse until the kids have enough time to like actually like fully grasp what they would even be doing, like Leah's storyline is going to be her being tortured
Yeah.
and like groomed for an entire season. Like Walker's is like super intense scenes the entire season. There's like no break for him. And so it's like just those two that would be, and Charlie has to be a literal fucking monster, an absolute monster on screen. He's going to act out scenes of him torturing Annabeth on screen. That would be very hard to be in that like state of mind for an entire season. And so they have to get ready for that. And so
Mm-hmm.
even though I want them to get ready for it, there's also this voice in my head where I'm like, but I don't want them to be home for that long because I just learned that if they're home for a long time, they're going to get really depressed. And I don't want them to be that depressed. I want them to not be depressed. Thank you. And so I'm like, I know that's what's happening. And so every time they end a season, I'm like, I hope they're not home longer than like 6 months
Yeah.
without doing something involving
Well,
the show, because doing just
Walker's
little
not getting
things
a
would break
break
it up.
though. Walker's doing he
Angry
got
Birds.
announced. Yeah, he's on Angry Birds 3, which like okay, first of all, who knew Angry Birds had two movies already? I didn't. And that it even has lore. Like
I
um
don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, I don't think he's getting a break now that I think about that with him doing Angry Birds. So he's gonna be doing voice acting in the
Well, I
meantime.
will say when it comes to like voice acting, I feel like that will be easier because it won't take as long. Like
That's
voice acting, you just go into like a studio and you just do it. You don't have to like be on camera.
well, I'd be
And
surprised if they could do like home studios now too.
and
Yeah.
just he would be able to like fly to LA for like a week, for like a weekend or like a week or something, film all the things for that movie and then like come back and be fine. And like honestly, when you're severely depressed, which I am an expert in feeling like that, doing like one thing that makes you feel good can like interrupt that for a little while and be like a nice break to make almost like the process start over again. So like even if they go back home and they're depressed again, at least they got like a break where they did something really fun for a while. And that
Yeah.
makes it, and you can kind of like ride the wave of that like happiness for a while before like the depression stuff starts to get bad again. And so that's what I think about, of like I hope they and I know they have things like that already going that they're going to do for
Hmm.
this show for season 2, much less like anything to do with season 3,
Yeah.
or anything else that they're doing, no, like the other kids too. And so it is just one of those things that I don't know. I feel like if like our whole thing is like anything, it's just even when we talk about things that are like trending, we never talk about it for the reason anyone else.
Oh yeah, like I said, I don't want to get into Justin and Haley's relationship.
It
That's
does not matter. That is a child that was horribly like just abused for many years, and yeah, he is kind of an asshole, but he's like that because Hollywood just took him and spit him back out. And
exactly.
the thing that I don't care about the absolute most is the stupid stuff with, like, if anything, honestly, as a traumatized person, very traumatized person from my childhood, him not being able to let go of Selena Gomez makes a lot of sense because there are people in your past that you are very attached to when you're really traumatized as a kid because you like remember happy things with them
Hmm.
and you don't want to like let go of that. Like I was friends with people that were not good friends with of mine for like 15 years, longer than I should have been, because they made me happy when I was in high school and nothing made me happy when I was in high school. Like Justin Bieber not being able to let go of Selena Gomez makes a lot of sense because she was probably one of the only things in the years that they knew each other that actually made him happy. And it's not because he's like secretly still in love with her, or like he doesn't care about Haley, or Haley and Selena have this whole battle going on. He's a traumatized person. That is why he acts that way. That is what we do. And it's really frustrating to see somebody falling apart and people still can't look at them like you would anybody else because they're just what, like a celebrity? Who cares? They're a person.
Yeah.
Like, can we just look at these people like a person when it's happening so that we
Yeah.
don't have to do these documentaries 10 years after it all happened?
It makes me think of Britney because like
Mhm.
that's kind of, you know, I was the right age when Britney had her meltdown in, what was it, like 2006, 2007. I was 16 or 17. So I was that age group where it was like, oh, we're watching this whole thing go down, and we want the next tabloid, we want the next story about what Britney's doing and what's happening with her marriage and her divorce and her kids. I don't want that this time around with Justin because it's the same shit. It's the same shit. He's crashing out because Hollywood has treated him terribly. That's it.
The thing
And
that the thing
yeah,
that drives me insane about that stuff, like Britney Spears happened in 2000. I remember in 2007, I was 22. Yeah, 22 then. And Amanda Bynes happened a couple of years after that in like
yeah,
2011, 2012. People like make jokes about them. Like I remember, and like, can
yeah.
I just like make the point that if you know people that are like traumatized in your life, or you just know that there's a capability that you might know somebody that was, because it's not like we tell people all the time if we're not ready. Um, we see you making fun of people that we know are going through the same thing, and I
Hmm.
don't like you anymore. Like, do you know how many, there's so many people in 2007, including like the girl that I was living with at the time. And I heard all of the horrible jokes that she made about Britney Spears. And I was like, I'm not telling you shit because I fell apart like that before. I'm continuing to always be on the like the brink of doing that at any given moment of my life, especially back then. Um, I like, ugh. And so it's like, if I know that you're gonna talk to about her like that, why would I ever tell you a single fucking thing? And I guess it's just that why would I ever tell you a single fucking thing? And I guess it's just that idea of like who are people like that supposed to tell? If you see the entire world making a joke out of you having a mental breakdown, why would you ever tell anybody what it, and like it drives me insane how like people made a joke about Britney Spears and then suddenly when they realized that she was being abused, they were like, "Oh, we feel bad for her now." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Now you feel bad?" Like you couldn't have realized in the moment that it was very obvious that that was happening at the time.
Yeah.
And instead you just like ignored it until she had to like literally fall apart at the seams in front of you for you to even notice anything. And it's like, what, we should not have to have a total and complete collapse as a human being for people to notice that there is something wrong because it's very obvious that
Hmm.
something is wrong. We're not good at hiding it. We kind of suck at it. But it like, you feel like you're better at it than you are because nobody actually notices or they don't say anything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so weird. And it just keeps happening. They just keep doing it over and over and over again. And I just like, even Joja Siwa, like people make a lot of jokes about her. There are videos of her saying that her mom made her go and get her hair dyed blonde when she was two.
Yeah, I can't imagine dealing with bleach as a 2 year old.
Two.
That shit stings. It actually like low level stings, and it was on her roots. I don't
Yes,
even get bleach on my roots anymore.
I don't even want to do that. I'm 40 and I don't want to do that. Like part of the reason why I've never gotten my hair dyed is because I don't want to have to sit there all that time and do it. I don't want to be in a hair salon that long. It's a very loud place. I don't want to. I want to
It's
leave and
sensory overload for sure.
yeah. I don't even know the words that they're because I'm not like a feminine person. It is like genuinely like a mystery when I'm at those like I need to get my hair cut again because it's getting too long. But the last time I got my hair cut was like last like August I think. My mom took me, and
Hmm.
when she was done like you know, cutting my hair and stuff, she was like, "Oh, do you want to use a diffuser?" And I just said yes. I had no idea what that was. Absolutely no clue. None. No idea what that was. I have no idea what she was doing at all. No clue.
It's
And
a
I was sitting there literally like watching
poster.
her like, what is this? I still am not sure. Even though I've seen videos on TikTok of people using it, no idea. None. Like, no clue. And so, no, I don't want to do that. And so, like, Jojo Siwa is like, there's videos of her talking about when she, like, before she turned 18, her mom would be like, oh, I'm worried that you're going to take all of your money and leave. And I was like, can I
My
punch
lord.
you? Like, right in the face. Can I just punch you one time? Because that is emotional manipulation. And, like, she's talking about it in a video as, like, defending her parents. And I'm like, can anyone else hear this? Like,
Yeah.
why are people making jokes about her all the time, like falling apart in the same way? Like, yeah, she's like all over the place because she's literally been in the spotlight since she was 3.
I feel like this meshes almost with the golden child bullshit that I went through because it was like a perfect storm of, yeah, I was the one that was chosen, but I also have that high people pleasing. Like, if you give me an A on something, I'm going to keep doing that. I like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much that kind of person. And so you put these kind of kids in Hollywood, I mean, it's what's going to happen to them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like unless their family is like in the industry somehow, whenever there's a kid whose family isn't in the industry at all, I'm like, what's going on? Because that's just not like something that a kid usually wants to do is like leave home and leave everything behind. And so I'm like, something isn't something. There's some need that isn't being met. Something is going on, and I just like wait for them to tell me in interviews, and I'm like, oh, okay, like got it.
Yeah.
But it's just like I literally just sit there and like wait because I know it's gonna happen at some point, and I think it's so funny that when there's kids like that, people are like surprised later on that they weren't happy, and I'm like, you didn't notice that
Yeah.
like something was like a little maybe a little bit off. I like to end this like whole discussion. I don't watch kids like in things. This is like the only thing that I will watch probably with like children as like the star because
Mhm.
it genuinely makes me stressed out knowing how I know that they're being exploited in some sort of a way. It's inherently an exploitative thing to be like a child actor. Even in like the best case scenario, it just is. And it's just a part of like you can know that and still want to support them and love them and want them to do that because they love doing it. But it's just something that is true. It's just true. And so like I've never watched like Stranger Things ever. I never will. I've never watched anything really when except when I was a kid. In some things I didn't watch when I was a kid that had kids in them because I felt like I was too adult for them when I was a kid because I was too adult for them when I was a kid. I literally felt like I can remember watching like kids TV shows that my sister would watch when I was 9 and like thinking about them the way that adults talk about them now because I was like so far away from that kind of stuff already. And
Yeah.
so like it's just one of those things that I don't know. It's just hard, and I just wish that people would like keep that in mind of just knowing. And the only thing that could get me to watch a show full of kids acting on screen is something like Percy Jackson that I love a lot, and so I have to watch it because I love it so much that I can't not. But then of course that just makes me want to know every detail of what's going on set that I can to try to convince myself that they're okay. And
Yeah.
that's generally like since I literally the second that I stopped watching the show, I immediately watched the behind the scenes documentary and looked up all of their interviews on YouTube and watched them for months to try to convince myself that they weren't being harmed. That was the only reason I started doing that. Was because and that's literally what I've been doing ever since is like watching them online or on social media or in their interviews or whatever just to like make myself feel better that they're not being hurt in some way because I know more than anyone else that like you can everything can look great and everything can actually suck ass like in reality. And so I watch that stuff to be like, okay, I think that they're fine because I am a good judge on like watching people's reactions and stuff and like body language and things like that. And so I know enough of that stuff that I feel like I can be sure that they're fine. But that's literally why. Like, I feel like most people watch stuff like that because they're like, oh, I really enjoyed this show and I want to just like keep enjoying it. So let me learn about the actors behind the show. And I'm like, no, I need to like convince myself that they're not being horribly exploited by the Disney Corporation.
Yeah.
And I was like, please God, I remember thinking literally, please God, Rick Riordan, be as good of a person as I think you are. And like he is. And so that's helpful.
Yeah.
But that's literally why. I never do things for the reason other people do. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, now we have to talk about these
Yeah,
chapters.
we have to talk about the chapters. So we start with chapter 9. I have to remove my bookmark. So chapter 9, we pick up right where we left off with Percy saying he was going to clean the stables, Garion's stables, of the flesh-eating horses. And so he decides pretty immediately, I'm going to use the same strategy that Heracles did. I'm going to go to this river over here, and I'm going to try to move that water. I have water powers somehow. I can figure this out. And once he gets there, immediately he is stopped by a naiad. And we don't ever get like a name for this naiad, but I was just like loving her from the moment she appeared. Because she's just like, no, 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 boy. The last boy that did this ruined my river for a long time. You're gonna pollute it, the fish are gonna die, the plants are gonna die. No, thank you. And Percy, he stops for a second. He's like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this now, but like, okay, you win. And she was not expecting that at all. Like,
No.
yeah, she was just like, wait, what? Okay, okay.
Yeah, this chapter, like chapter 9, if you like want to sum it up, if I could sum it up, it would be like, I just love Percy Jackson as a character. That's what this entire chapter is, because
His strength, his actual strength.
yes,
Here.
and like because like the idea that he noticed, first off, the fact that he notices that the naiad is like pretending to be mad and that she's actually scared.
Yes.
And he's like, I feel like a bully, being like a kid of Poseidon, just like showing up and just taking whatever I want. I don't want to do that. And so he just like sits down and he's like, okay. And she's like, what? And he's like, I won't mess up your river. I can't, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like my friends are going to die, but I don't want to be a bully. I don't want to treat people like that. And this entire chapter with this whole thing where he then eventually figures out with her help that if he takes like, and I was waiting for him to figure this out because this is like a power thing that he does, is that he can like create water anywhere he is. And so he finds like little shells that are like in the ground, and is able to make water come out of it, like like ocean water, like salt water in the middle of this ranch, and clean everything that way. And he's able to do that, but like just when this whole part happens where he figures out a way to, not only does he figure out a way to bring the water up, and it is really funny hearing like the flesh-eating horses go from like, I can't wait to eat you, and then being like, please stop cleaning us.
Yes.
Like, I swear, if we never eat another human again, will you stop cleaning us with this horrible water?
And so wait, they called him seafood. We missed that point. They were like, "Oh, you're a child of Poseidon. Okay, come here, seafood. We'll eat you." Like,
yeah, we'll also eat your dad if he shows up too. That would be fun. And it's like, oh my god. And to hear them be like, please just stop cleaning us. This water sucks. And he's like, okay, that's fine. That's an easy way to fix this. But it's just like the overall idea that he figures that out because he's like, I don't want to hurt this like naiad's river. That's not fair for me to ruin where she lives for a long time just because I need something. And then also the fact that the thing that makes him like panic enough that he stops like the water coming out is that he's freaking out because he doesn't want the salt water to get to the river to ruin it.
yes.
What other hero have you ever heard of that would care that much about one naiad and her tiny little river that does not matter, that he would like be panicking about shutting off the water so he doesn't accidentally ruin her home?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, this is why he is the best. This is why I love him so much as a character. And it's just like so obvious. Like Rick Riordan could stamp it on your forehead. Like, take care of people. Like, watch out for people in your community. This one Naiad does not matter. And he still does this whole thing he figures out a way to save his friends and also help her. You can do that. If you
Well, and it
actually
goes
take the
to
time.
show, like, no one else would stop for that Naiad, but she had useful information. And the only reason he's able to get that information from her is because she's like, okay, this isn't a bad guy. I'm going to help him out. I'll tell him we're not so different. You have the power to do this water thing too.
Yeah, and that's like really the whole point of that stuff is that if you are nice to overall, like, and just like kind to people that you run into, they're more likely to like help you out or just be nice to you or like help you when you do need things. You don't need to like do things to try to like force them because they do it like willingly to help
Yeah.
you when they know that you're actually a nice person and you want to do that. Like, just like a tiny thing from like my own life, like people at my job, like people I was in my training class with sometimes will like message me out of nowhere and like ask a question about like something that they don't know, and I always give them the answer. And it's because when we were in training, I would like answer questions, but also I wasn't a jerk. And I was like nice to them and I didn't like make them feel bad about not knowing things. I was like explaining things that I know from working at like attorneys' offices and things like that about the work that we do so that they will understand. And so they will just message me out of nowhere sometimes. I haven't spoken to some of those people in like 3 months and they'll all of a sudden just message me and ask me something. And it's like I'm glad that they feel like they can like approach me with stuff like that and I won't like, say anything to anybody or get them in trouble or anything because I will not. But it's just like that kind of an idea of like my manager at my job is like tried to help me get like the interview that I didn't get the job for, but that happened because she likes me.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's very much watching out for me. I could be much worse messed up at my job right now with a worse manager. Other people I work with have worse people in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And like I know that she's doing that because she likes me. And it's not because I did anything on purpose to make her like me. I just tried however I could at my job.
Yeah.
And was just honest with her when I didn't like things. I didn't like pretend. And it's just like when you're like a genuine person, people can just tell and they're more likely to help you. And you don't need to be a maniacal demon monster in order to get people to help you because they just do it without trying because you're just a genuine person. And that's what this whole chapter is, like him. I just like watching, like reading this stuff, like imagining, like this is probably why people talk about him as like this crazy powerful being because not only does he make like the ocean show up out of nowhere and cleans all of those horses where the man-eating horses are now afraid of him. Then
Yeah.
he runs inside and he sees all of his friends tied up and he's like, "Let my friends go now, thank you and goodbye." And of course, like Geryon is like, "No, I'm gonna keep them there, and I'm gonna like barbecue them and do all of this ridiculous stuff. I'm not actually gonna let them go, even though I told you that I would let them go because I didn't think you would actually succeed." Is the general idea that I got from that. And so instead, I'm just gonna like try to sell them anyway and sell you. And he's like, no. And he just freaks out and starts yelling at them and finds like a bow and arrow, and I'm laughing because of how bad Percy is at bow and arrow. And he just like picks it up and just prays to Apollo like, "Please help me.
Yeah,
Please
Apollo
just
and
like
Artemis.
please help me do like one shot just one time that I can do this well." And he does it and he kills the guy. And as like I will say like the one thing to like take note of like plot wise is that when the guy is dying, he says like he said that you couldn't shoot. And that's like a
Weird.
clue that Luke was already there and he is ahead of them because he was already there and telling him what Percy would do, thinking, and that guy, Geryon was pretty sure that he would be able to like beat Percy, and
Yeah.
that didn't work. But it's just, I was like thinking of that, like imagining on the outside, watching him like explode everything outside, come in, just rampage and kill the guy. that has like 3 chests and find a way to just like shoot him across all 3 of them and take them out and be like, don't touch my friends. And I was like, is this why people think we're scary? Because when I was reading that, I was like, I would do something like that. Like, if you ever want to see me angry, tell Mandy that emotional incest isn't real. And then
Yeah.
fear
That's
for
how we
your fucking
became
life.
friends. Yeah.
Fear for your life. You should fear for your life. If you ever say something like that in front of me, I will kill you. Like with words, but watch out. Like I will. That's like one of those things of when I feel like I can trust you, I will like destroy other people in your name, and I will have no problem doing that whatsoever. And that's that's definitely what Percy does. And I'm like, yeah, if we trust you, like you better back away before something very bad is about to happen to you.
Yeah.
But the part of this chapter that I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to post a clip of like you reading it when you do our lives, because it's like summing up Percy Jackson as like a thing, a property in like 3 sentences. And it's the part when he's talking to, what's his
Eurydion.
name? Yes. And he's telling him like, what do you mean that you like are that you have died before and that you don't want to, but you don't want to do this, but you feel like protect, like you're like connected to him somehow. And he's telling him how he always ends up stuck with him and things like that. And Percy's like, well, what if this time when you start over, you like, you make like the ranch better? Like, what if instead of like selling the meat to like Luke and stuff like that for the like the cows that are Apollo's cows, what if you like take care of them? What if you like clean like where the flesh-eating horses are? What if you like actually make this ranch a really nice place for people to be and change things and instead like help people instead of being like a villain like he does of just using everybody? What if you just like change everything so that when he finds you again, it will be a completely different situation because you will be a totally new person?
Yeah.
And the guy's just like, oh, okay, I guess I could try that. But I'm like, that is literally the entire thing of Percy Jackson and the Olympians as a property. Is like, what if instead you just like try to make your community better, and then naturally people will like you'll have a more positive effect on people instead of trying to like sell things to Luke or trying to like get back at the gods. What if you just like help the people around you and see what a positive impact you can make on people without even trying?
Yeah.
And the guy is like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And I was just like, like,
Yeah, like, why don't I make soybean patties or whatever he said?
yeah. He was like, I'll try making soybean patties now so I don't sell meat. And I'll like sell it to people that actually like need it and stuff instead of like Luke's maniacal demon army
Yeah.
and things like that. And it's just like, oh, wow. Like, why is anyone shocked that he didn't want to do immortality in like the next book? But that's exactly what you want, or what this book series is trying to show over and over again. Is like that's always the best. That's just always an option that's going to lead to something good. Because then when they're wanting to leave, that guy is the one that helps them know where to go. And they
Yeah.
otherwise would have had to figure that out.
Well, a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about really quick with the flesh-eating horses. When he scares them bad enough, what he says is, "I'm going to come back and make this salty water appear again if you eat anything besides what you were fed by the cow herd." And they're like, "Okay, yeah," which means that it's going to be easy for Eurydion to take care of the entire farm. And what Percy says exactly is, be nice to the animals, take care of them, stop selling them for food, stop dealing with the Titans. Get the animals on your side and they'll help you. Once Geryon gets back, maybe he'll be working for you for this, or he'll be working for you this time. Yeah, and like just the idea, he's sharing this idea, like be nice to everybody. That includes animals. I mean, we know Percy and Bessie last book. We got Eurydion and the flesh-eating horses are going to be friends now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that is such a way that is a way that Percy would handle this situation.
Yeah.
And oh god, this next part was just hard.
Yeah, so we then end on they want to summon Bianca because they're trying to get Nico to not join Kronos, at least, at the very least, but preferably, I think Percy wants him to come with him the most or stay with Eurydion, but whatever it is, don't leave. Like, don't go off to where Kronos can get his paws on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, chapter 10 starts with this, the ceremony that Nico's been performing that he's been seeing. And wait, does he say it at the end of the last chapter? I don't want to say it too soon. Yes, he says it at the end of the last chapter. Percy, at this exact moment where he's trying to figure out how to win Nico over, realizes that the iris messages he's been getting showing him what Nico is doing has been Bianca. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I'm pretty sure if we try to contact Bianca this time, she's going to come. Now, I started seeing the signs immediately because it's like the second little paragraph thing. The moon was full, silver clouds. So moon, silver, that's already summoning Artemis imagery. Let's see. And then Nico keeps saying the entire time Minos should be here right now while they're trying to start the ritual. And Minos ends up being one of the first people to come up. They have a quick conversation with him. Let's see. Daedalus cares nothing for you, half-bloods, Minos warned. You can't trust him. He is old beyond counting and crafty. He's bitter from the guilt of murder and is cursed by the gods. So the guilt of murder comes up later, but that's one of the things Minos says before he has to try to ruin everything and then disappear. We also find out that Minos drives people in the labyrinth crazy because he feels it is his. The lore behind the labyrinth, I'm sure, this is one of the more well-known stories, but I'm going to start it a little earlier. Minos, when he was in competition to rule Crete, he said that he can... I forgot exactly how it goes, but he promised a very beautiful cow. And he prayed to Poseidon to make this cow happen. Cow appears on the shore. He's able to win the kingdom of Crete. And he promised Poseidon, I will sacrifice the bull, the cow thing, to you after I win this. But the bull was so beautiful, he couldn't bear to kill it. And so he just sacrificed a regular old bull. And so, as a punishment, his wife was driven insane. She fell in love with the bull, and Daedalus just had to help her act on it. So he created a device in which she could mate with the bull. The Minotaur was born, and then Daedalus had to build the chamber to hide it in there so that, the monster could live within there. Now, Minos thinks that he owns this now because this theoretically is a structure he commissioned as king. But it keeps growing. It's more Daedalus's than yours, I think. I'm sure he knows it. He's a spirit. He doesn't necessarily have to act within the bounds of physics. But, it's interesting. The ownership question is, I get why he thinks he owns it, but it's weird.
You can't own a living thing.
Yeah,
the labyrinth is a living thing. It's moving. It has a personality.
Yeah. I mean, it's more AI than it is, being, but I don't know.
It's like a thing that moves and does things on its own without someone telling it to. And it's just of course, Minos is the one that made Chris Rodriguez lose his mind.
Yeah.
Just doing that on purpose to somebody, just because he's in a place that you don't think he should be. But either way, this part is Bianca coming up and finally saying things that needed to be said. Just her, this makes up for her, dying in the first place to me, her trying to make things right. Mm-hmm. I did not remember this scene at all that was in this book until I was reading it, so that was fun. But her just, first off, telling Percy when he says, I'm sorry, me dying is not your fault at all. Mm-hmm. Do not blame yourself or any of it. It was my decision. I did that. You had nothing to do with it. And her telling, Nico, like, I didn't come forward before because I didn't want you to keep doing this, and I was hoping that if I showed Percy what you were doing, that you would stop trying to like bring
Yeah,
me
get
back in this way.
people.
And especially like um and her just trying to fix things afterwards. And I especially loved how she like calls Nico on it and is like, "You're mad at me. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
mad that I left you. You're mad that I joined the hunters. You're mad that I left you at camp and abandoned you. You're not actually mad at Percy. You're mad at me. Like, she's like, be mad at me. Because I'm actually the one that you should be mad at, really." And it is very, yeah, that is what he's doing. He's mad at Bianca for leaving, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like using Percy as like a little avatar for that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just, it was very good to see her say all that stuff. And even though it's hard for Nico still, obviously, he's a 11,
Yeah.
trying to deal with that. The one thing from this part that I like too is just Annabeth telling Nico, like, you need to, like, be careful. Like, you are in danger. If Luke finds you, like, something not good will happen to you. And him being like, I'm not afraid. And she's like, you should be.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be afraid because you have no idea what he will do to you. And, like, and just to have, like, a little bit of an idea of, like, we've been trying to protect you. Like, Percy has been trying to protect you from this whole time. And you need to understand, like, how dangerous people will be if they find out about you. Like, please, like, don't do anything that would lead to people finding out about you, because they can't really control what Luke is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They can try, but that's hard. Um, and he's so young, and there's so many easy things for them to use that it would be very easy for them to do something with him, or get him to. They would just talk about how they don't like Percy enough, and he would get mad enough at stuff that would make somebody like Luke, who's very manipulative, to listen to him.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was glad that they, like, at least tried to say it a little bit to him, to not being super abrupt about it, but still getting him the idea of, like, if people find out who you are, bad people are going to try to hurt you. We found you, but we care about you, but the other people who might find you don't care about you,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to watch out. Because, like, thank God, because that little child needs to watch out, and it stresses me out. I honestly don't remember what he does the rest of this book.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, necessarily how things go. I remember how it ends, but I don't remember what happens in the middle.
Yeah.
um, uh,
Next, we have a dream sequence. So they go to sleep at the ranch, and Percy has a dream about Mount Tam slash Mount Orthus. He sees Luke. He sees Luke talking to Dracaini, to Kelly, and to Campy. Campy wants revenge for people getting through her grasp. She doesn't like that. Kelly is messing with Percy again a little bit, not at first. And I think she likes doing that, of like making him an ink, like maybe this time she's not gonna scare me. But then she always does at the very end. Let's see.
the
One
thing
thing,
I the thing I thought of that part with Luke that I thought was important
yeah,
for, like, the rest of what happens in the other chapters is that that dream shows that Luke has Ariadne's string already,
yeah,
and that he's much further along than they thought. Um, and so Percy knows that, and when he wakes up, he knows that, and he doesn't tell anybody that.
yeah,
Um, he can't. Like, it's established that he can't, but still he knows that, and that, like, does influence his actions later on. And then right after that, he goes into that whole thing with Daedalus, where he kills a child. Um, and so he has.
really quick, there's something Kelly says in her exchange with Luke. So he's kind of like apprehensive of Campy. Like, fear is kind of the wrong word, but what he says is we should have left that one in Tartarus. She's too chaotic, too powerful. And then Kelly responds, you should not fear power, Luke. Use it. And it's like, no, he doesn't need more people telling him this bullshit. Stop.
And the other part with that part with Luke was him being like, I just want to get this over with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Kelly being like, oh, are you backtracking? And of course he like shuts down and is like, no. But also, can we like make the point that like him saying, I just want to get this over with is I want to show up at camp and murder everyone there.
Yeah.
I can't wait to kill everybody. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Just, that's what he's talking about. I don't even if you want to believe that he's like questioning what he's doing, he is literally saying, I just want to get this one thing over with and then everything will be done and we can move on. He is talking about murdering children that all know him well.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. Killing everybody at camp so then they can go and kill their parents. Okay. Well, all right. That's great.
Yeah, and then the dream shifts. Kelly scratches Dream Percy. Dream shifts, and he's suddenly with Daedalus in the labyrinth again. And this appears to be post Icarus. I got to call Rick on this one. He did these out of order, and I do understand why he did them out of order. We'll get to that at the ending of the story. But Perdix actually is the reason why Daedalus was in Crete, because he pushed him off of, I think it was the Acropolis itself in Athens. And Athena's like, you gotta go, buddy, I liked that kid. And she turned him into, Perdix is like the genus name for partridges. So a bird that is mostly around, like bushes and not as vertical altitude, from my understanding at least, was the idea. Anyways, so he has this dream where after the death of Icarus, he's with his 12, 13-year-old nephew, Perdix. And Perdix is, like, very clearly a good inventor. He's showing Daedalus, like, oh, this thing you gave me to solve, I solved it. The other thing, I already solved that too. And then he's talking to Daedalus about, I think we can make people live forever. We just gotta get people's animus, their spirit, and put it into another form. Basically, automatons like Talos, the thing that Bianca died in. Which, by the way, I got confused about this. Shannon's the only one that would have known about this if I didn't admit to it, but I'm gonna admit I'm not a perfect classicist. Because apparently one of Perdix's other names is Talos. And I was like, wait a second, isn't that the automaton? And it's like, no, different Talos. Okay, but anyways, he's talking about putting spirits within robotic bodies. You play Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Minoru, what she did, essentially. And it's while he's having this idea that Daedalus is just, like, getting angrier and angrier at this kid. And then the kid starts playing with, like, a toy beetle thing, and he talks about how, oh, it would be really cool to fly. I'm so sorry that your son died flying, Opal, but I think it'd be really cool to fly, and I think that I could make my own wings and stuff like that. And Daedalus, he grabs one of the beetles too, and then all of a sudden Janus appears. And we know Janus appears because Janus is the god of choices, and he's literally just saying, choose, choose. And Daedalus takes the beetle, he's like, hey, Perdix, catch this. And he throws it, and then Perdix falls out the window. And while Perdix is hanging out the window, Daedalus has the option to save him. Like, he's hanging on for a second, but he doesn't. And then he hears the voice of Athena. It says, you will pay the price for that, Daedalus. And Daedalus here says, I have always honored you, mother. So we find out he's a child of Athena. I've sacrificed everything to follow your way. And she says, yet the boy had my blessing as well, and you have killed him. For that you must pay. And so Percy then wakes up feeling body sensations that it seems like are whatever the punishment was to Daedalus. Daedalus in the dream collapses in agony, and Percy says he feels a searing pain closing around his neck like molten hot collar. So something collaring him. Which yeah, I I don't know what to make of that just yet. I'm sure it comes up later in Daedalus' story, but
Hmm.
yeah.
I I know what it's like to wake up like that.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant experience. I used to wake up like that, feeling like something was like suffocating me all the time, literally almost every night for like a year and a half. That's not so fun. And so he wakes up and sees that Arian Grover is awake, and she's like turned on the TV and sees how much time has passed and that it's been like it's way past his deadline.
Yeah, it's
And so he's like, if I don't find Pan when they come back, they're just going to take away my license. And like Percy goes right into taking care of everybody else. And
yeah.
like he's just had this dream seeing that Luke is way ahead of them. And also he was basically being like kind of low key suffocated when he woke up from that dream, seeing that somebody just murdered their freaking nephew. And he's like, anyway, what about you? And like is like consoling Grover and stuff. And I was just like, oh Jesus Christ, why does this remind me of every interaction I ever had with anybody that I ever met? Go to when they go to leave, what's his name again? I can never remember his name.
Viridion.
Aridion. He basically gives them this thing that Hephaestus had, that he had, this
Yeah.
necklace that turns into like a mechanical spider. And they're like nice to that guy. Like Percy doesn't kill that guy. They definitely, people at first were wanting him to kind of, but he decides not to, and he ends up giving them like the shortcut to Hephaestus that would have taken 7,000 years longer
Yeah.
if he didn't give them that, because they just followed this spider through. Um, the main thing that happens next is Sphinx.
Oh wait. So Nico, this is where
Oh yeah.
Nico parts for now, while they're leaving, because they do make a case for like come with us,
Hmm.
but he doesn't want to come with them. At the same time, he doesn't really seem interested at all in Kronos and whatever's going on over there. So they kind of just let it go.
Hmm. He seems like he's still like trying to figure out how to feel about things with Bianca. Like I think Percy was right when he said that he thought that he might be upset with him because Bianca came forward when he was there and she didn't show up when only Nika was there.
Hmm.
That's understandable. He's 11, that anyone would have a hard time with that, much less a sixth grader. Um, and so that's understandable. And so the Sphinx is the first thing that they run into. Um,
Yeah. Um,
and this is definitely like a hubris moment for Annabeth. Um,
yeah, and like it's really funny because the entire time you're thinking the same thing everybody else is. You're like, shut up, Annabeth, just answer the questions.
mhm.
But yeah, they did have to go over monkey bars before that too. And Tyson and Grover are starting to couple up. I think that's like a part I do want to make sure
Yeah,
we talk about. So
yeah.
Tyson gave Grover a piggyback ride over the like monkey bar section that they had to go through. And they're like slowly getting more and more comfortable with each other. It's just kind of this cool periphery thing that we're getting hints of here and there.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And like Tyson, in his Tyson ways, saying things to Grover to like, make him feel better and stuff
Yeah.
in the way that Tyson does. It's just very sweet. And they are
But
basically the same person in many, same personality. And so it makes sense that they would find a way to get along.
Well, okay, so then we get to the Sphinx, as you said, and the Sphinx. So what we find out is because there's usually only one Sphinx in Greek mythology. I was telling Shannon this earlier. I always get confused on if there is canonically more than one Sphinx because, like, you only hear about the one in Oedipus, but like Sphinx is a whole enemy in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's like there could be more than one. So, but the Sphinx in Oedipus has a very famous riddle. Annabeth says it. She's like, "Wait, you were supposed to ask me that one." And it's what walks on four legs in the morning, two legs in the afternoon, and three legs at nighttime. And the answer is man. Morning being when he's a baby, afternoon being when he's an adult, and the three legs being an old person with a cane. And so the Sphinx had changed tactics by this point, and I feel like Rick is trying to point towards a specific type of teacher, but essentially, this is a teacher giving a pop quiz. And so the questions shifted from being actual riddles, word puzzles, to she's asking her like the capital of places. What did she say? The capital of Bulgaria. And then she says to mark it clearly with the number 2 pencil, which if you've been in school in America, I don't know that other countries use Scantrons, but we have to do these bubble sheets for our tests sometimes once you get into the upper grades. And they're very particular about them. It's like, it has to be a number 2 pencil. You have to erase completely. And she says all of the lines, which is how you know that she's a middle school teacher.
Yeah. I know. I love in every book Rick finds a way to be like, schools are stupid and here is how. And because like I remember that stuff. My mom was a teacher, my sister is a teacher, so yeah, they do things like this and it's really annoying. Just like he finds a way to like bring it into this thing in like creative ways. The Sphinx thing is interesting when it comes to Annabeth's fatal flaw of like hubris, because she gets so mad that she's asking her easy questions that she causes like this whole battle. And when she like is mad and wants to like fight the Sphinx because she's so mad that the Sphinx is asking her easy questions, and Percy's like, just put your head on and be invisible. The rest of us can fight her because she's trying to hurt you. I know you're mad, but just like put your invisibility head on for the love of God, and just like let us fight her so we can like move along, please. And it's just funny how that how her fatal flaw shows up like this, and his shows up in a much worse way in a little bit. But it's just that whole thing, I guess, of that her fatal flaw, usually he helps her bail out of situations, like he did that in Sea of Monsters with the whole siren thing too. And so he tries to do it here again, and it does work. They are able to go along. Who knows what Annabeth would have done to the Sphinx? Yeah. if they weren't like trying to calm her down and being like, can we just like not fight this thing? Let's just like continue on and let her freak out about her pencils all being broken. And I'll have flashbacks to annoying teachers who made me really paranoid about how I was erasing things on Scantron tests.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She dies because Tyson throws her grading machine at her. She's like, oh no, my test scores! Yeah, and they're able to escape because Annabeth goes invisible and everybody else just fights and then gives them enough room to exit.
Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is when Grover thinks he finds Pan, or at least finds like a way to find him. And this is like the first a time that they're separating, because Grover and Tyson are going to go together, but they're obviously not going to be with Percy and Annabeth anymore for at least a little bit. And it is this whole thing of like figuring out like, should we separate? This seems like a really bad idea. Like Annabeth is like, I don't think this is a good idea. But it's also a thing of they don't really have like a choice at this point. They have to do it. Like Percy hasn't like said anything out loud, but he knows that Luke is way farther along than they are, and he's a lot closer to finding Daedalus. And the dream with Daedalus too was kind of, I felt like, foreshadowing the whole Kronos body thing, that kid was like thinking about the technology to build a body that can't die for Kronos. And so it's like it's there, and so they have to kind of make that like difficult decision. And I can't remember what Tyson says when he's leaving with Grover, but it's adorable that he's just like, come on, little goat friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do see Hephaestus while they're still together.
Oh, right. Hephaestus, oh my god. I'm like ignoring that because it just like stressed me out.
So Hephaestus wants to send them on a quest, in like a mini quest within their quest, a side quest. He sends them, so Mount St. Helen is apparently the equivalent of, what was it? Why didn't I highlight this? But it's one of his main forges, essentially. Mount St. Helen has become one of his forges. There's more volcanic activity. He's 90% sure there's somebody working in there. But every time he's gone or sent an automaton, he can't figure out who it is. And so he wants them to figure it out. One interesting thing that comes out in his conversation with them is like Rick's little explanation for why there's two versions of who throws Hephaestus off of the mountain. So, Hephaestus is talking about how oh yeah, you talked to my loving mother, Hera, like she threw me off a mountain once. And Percy says, I thought Zeus did that. And that's when Hephaestus is like, yeah, my mom would want you to think that's how it happened. So like, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is why we make this podcast right here.
Yeah. And why Hera is exactly that sort of mom that like wants everything
She's
to
the
look
Ruby
good.
Frankie mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wants everything to look good on the outside and doesn't care like what people look like on the or what's actually going on the inside. Is willing to treat their child like her child like that because he doesn't look good for her image. There's a lot of moms like that that are definitely abusive. And this part I thought was interesting because Hephaestus is definitely like the scapegoat of the gods.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting because Percy doesn't trust him, and he has valid reasons not to trust him, even though he's one of the gods that would maybe be nicer to him. Because Hephaestus says, like, you know, oh, I don't trust any person or human or whatever anymore. I just trust the things that I can, like, build myself. And Percy's like, well, you built something that literally killed Bianca. You attacked us with spiders on the ride. So I don't trust you because the things that you're making also aren't safe either. So why would I trust you? Like, if that's the only thing you think matters, those are also not great either. And so it's one of those situations of you wish that they could, like, get along in some way or talk or whatever, but they just can't because Hephaestus is like, I hate all people. And Percy's like, the only thing that keeps me alive anymore are people around me caring about me. It's just like opposite reactions to the same thing. And he has like every reason not to trust Hephaestus because it is like, yeah, his robot thing did try to kill them all because it wasn't working right. And so it's like, you also still don't make sense, Hephaestus.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, your robots don't really work that well either. And this is like the only thing you think actually does. But either way, they leave to go figure that out. That's when
that's when they split up, and it's because Kroger notices one of the pathways is more like dirt and roots. He smells that strong naturey smell, and he's like, Tyson, don't you smell it? And Tyson's like, yeah, it smells like dirt. Like, you know, Tyson notices it too, even if it doesn't have the same effect on him. So they go off, and then let's see. So they start heading a direction that one of Hephaestus's spiders is leading them. And it starts getting hotter and hotter, so they know they're getting close to Mount St. Helen because it's a volcano. And they have a conversation about how Annabeth was born. And this is like definitely one of people that love Greek mythology's main problems with Rick Riordan is like, how are you going to say Athena has children? How? And this is the explanation. I'm going to call him on this too. 2009, Mandy called him on it. Like, I know you can't read that, but I was like, she kind of had a mom though. Athena kind of had a mom. Because I ended up writing my thesis on this. There is no monogenesis among male gods that you can clearly call monogenesis. My big argument, like, this is me making a stand, was I said that Aphrodite, because Uranus's genitals hit the floor before they hit the ocean, that's technically Gaia. So they did have a woman involved with hers. Like, I argued it so hard that my professors were like, I mean, I see what you did there. But, yeah.
Stop talking about genitals.
Yeah. Anyway, so Annabeth says children of Athena are born through thoughts. They're thought children, brain children. And she doesn't get into any more particulars because, you know, they end up getting to their destination. Mm-hmm. There's bubbling lava. There's a bunch of creatures that are at forges building some stuff. And Annabeth's like, we're never going to be able to sneak through, so I'm going to have to go invisible. Percy then hides in a minecart. And unfortunately, that minecart is immediately rolled to another room. And so in this room, he starts hearing, again, like, Rick's pulling in weird middle school shit here. It's a bunch of a bunch of monsters, and they're in some sort of lesson that seems to be almost like when you get the birds and the bees talk at school.
Mm-hmm.
It says, as young sea demon matures, changes happen in the monster's body. You may notice your fangs getting longer, and you may have a sudden desire to devour human beings. This is normal. And it's just like, what? And so Percy's in the minecart hearing all of this go on. And these are essentially baby monsters. They're repeating things like you would in an elementary school class almost. So the instructor says, now younglings, what is the proper name of our kind? Someone says sea demons. No, anyone else? And I think this is pronounced telekeens. But yeah, so telekeens are like before cyclopes. They actually taught the cyclopes how to forge, or how to work at a forge. They are known for two things. They say one of them in the book. It's Poseidon's trident. The other one being Kronos' sickle. So these are some pretty powerful blacksmiths. Now, they kind of go propaganda-y after that, because it's like, okay, why are we here? Revenge, they all shout. Yes, yes, but why? Zeus is evil. He cast us into Tartarus just because we use magic. So I looked this up to see what is the dark magic they used that Zeus did not approve of. They basically caused a blight. You know, dead people, dead plants, and if there's no food, no animals, no people, like there's nobody to sacrifice for the gods. So the gods don't like that. Like that's Zeus's motivation. So yeah, he cast them into Tartarus because he's like, you're killing all the people that burn us offerings, dude.
The thing from this part too that I want to like point out is that Percy didn't need to do any of this. Like, Annabeth has an invisibility hat. He could have just like stayed where he was and just like waited for her to come back. But he can't do that. And so all this stuff happens because he can't do that. And there's like obvious reasons for why he wouldn't just sit back and wait for that to happen. But it just, this whole part I was just thinking that like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to be hiding out and ending up hearing any of this. You don't have to do any of this. Like, Annabeth could have gone in and looked at everything and come back like she did. And you could have come up with some other plan. But it's just not how he is. And, like, I'll go into that in a bit when all the big stuff happens with him. But it was just like, yeah, he didn't technically have to do this, but he has every reason for why he actually is. In this part. Rick does a really good job with this whole scene of bringing together all these sort of issues that Percy is dealing with and making them culminate in this sort of a way.
Yeah.
Of like, this horrible thing happened, of course it did, because all these other things like lined up in this sort of a way for it to happen. And so basically they end up seeing him and yelling at him, and him like yelling at them to try to get them to like back off, and like trying to scare them with Riptide and things like that. And they are just like mocking him because they know that he's a Poseidon kid, and they don't like Poseidon because he took their trident and didn't do anything to help them when they were stuck in Tartarus and stuff. And he's just trying to scare them enough, but doesn't have any general idea what he is doing in any way. And is just like, I'm just panicking and trying to like come up with something before anyone tries to kill me too fast.
I feel like there's an Anakin Skywalker joke in here somewhere with the instructor calling them younglings and then him slashing a bunch of them. Yeah, it's a dark joke though.
But yeah, he
slashes his way out, and then he goes to Annabeth.
Yeah, and so the thing too, like, this is one of those things I love about these books, is that I feel like people almost like sometimes forget, is that like we're seeing things from Percy's perspective, right? He says it after this is done. He's lying to Annabeth. He is lying to her that entire time. And is like acting like everything is fine and everything is good and he has a plan and he's going to handle everything. You leave, I'll be fine. And I think that she picks up on a little bit of that because I think that's why she kisses him, is because he's like, oh, yeah, somebody has to do it, right? And I'm like, I've literally said those words before to
Yep.
so many people about, like, well, somebody has to do this, so it's just gonna end up being me, right? Um, and so she kisses him, and he's like, what? Like, not
Yeah.
expecting that at all. But she, like, believes him enough to leave. And I made, like, a video reading this out, but this is such, like, an important thing for him to just, like, admit is, like, I think I might die here,
Yeah.
because I wish that I actually did have a plan. I wish that I wasn't lying to Annabeth just now, telling her to leave when I have no idea what to do. I wish that this wasn't going to happen to me, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And this whole part just made me, like, not only upset because it's just upsetting to read him being in, like, so much pain, like physical pain.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also a thing of, this is why these things happen to scapegoats. Thank you, like, Rick Riordan, for writing it this way. Because it's like, the whistle thing is going off when he's there. He doesn't trust it because of Luke. He doesn't trust to use the whistle that would probably have bailed him out because Luke has made him be afraid of people being nice to him.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't use the whistle. That was somebody. He could have told Annabeth about what was really going on. He didn't want to do that because of all the stuff with Luke. And so the only role that he feels like he has in this world is by going out and doing these things that nobody else can do. And like when you are a scapegoat, oh my God, you have like this deep desire to be like helpful, to have like a role. Like one of the things I had like one of the biggest breakdowns about when I was in a treatment program was like realizing that like I don't need to be like useful to other people. Like I felt like I had to like give people advice or like help people in some way in order for anyone to want anything at all to do with me. And I
Mhm.
remember my therapist saying something like that to me, and I would literally like looked at him and I was like, then why would anybody ever talk to me? And I just started crying, and he was like, that's like the only way you've ever received love before in your life, isn't it? By doing like these other things for other people. And I was like, yeah. And that's also Percy. The only positive reinforcement he ever gets is by doing other things for other people. Like Gabe is beating the crap out of him. He hides it from his mom. He is told he's supposed to do that. He's being treated badly at school. He hides that from his mom because he thinks he's supposed to do that. Like all this stuff with like this world. The only time anyone is ever happy with him is when he's doing like these dangerous quests where he might die.
Mhm.
And so it's like that whole thing of like, oh, why didn't Percy ask for help? But it's like, why would he ask for help? When has that ever been an option for him? He doesn't even trust Hephaestus because Hephaestus's monsters kill him and his friends. And it's
Mhm.
like there's nobody around. Grover and Tyson aren't there. Annabeth he can't really talk about that stuff with because of how weird things are with her being groomed by Luke and trying to like be in her life but can't be too close to her at the same time. He doesn't trust anyone trying to help him because he thinks they're trying to trap him. So that's
Mhm.
how he ends up like alone in this situation with these monsters throwing lava on his skin that is so painful that he falls on the floor and starts screaming
Yeah.
and is like basically like I am about to die. This is like the most pain that I've ever been in my entire life. And he just like explodes because of it and causes like what happens. The next the next chapter is when he's at Calypso's island. And this is why like when people talk about Calypso, I am like, what are you talking about? This Percy is the one that ends up on Calypso's island. Like you made a video talking about how Calypso's island is like the worst case scenario. This is the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
This is the worst case scenario for Percy. He almost died. His skin is like burning from lava that he is so in so much pain that he just like panics and makes himself turn into like this giant comet that is like crashing down to earth. That's why it takes him weeks after he comes back before he even looks like himself. He is like there alone because all the other people that he trusts aren't there, which aren't that many people. He knows that Luke is about to find camp and kill everybody. Like,
Mhm.
so all of these things are like coming at him at the same time. And so he's left on his own with these monsters. And there's like, you could sit there and say, like, oh, he could have told Annabeth something, or he could have told somebody else something. And it's like, but why would he ever do that? Because he's never been like given, no one's ever given him the idea that that would be something that he could do without being like punished for it.
Yeah.
And so he's learned that he's supposed to handle all of this stuff. Like Thalia left him with being the prophecy kid. And the only thing that makes him like the saddest during this part is him thinking like, maybe I'm not going to be the prophecy kid because I'm going to die right now.
Yeah.
And like I just like almost hope that people understand that he legitimately thinks that he is going to die right now. And he almost does die. Like, this isn't like one of those things in books like this where they make you think, but they somehow get out of it. Like, no, he almost dies. Like, he is, like, lucky that he doesn't die. It takes him weeks to recover from this, even weeks after they come back from Calypso's island. He is still really skinny, and his skin is all messed up when he comes back. We'll read it soon for a while. So it's like, he is actually about to die during this part while everyone else that he cares about is safe. And if he would have died with everyone else safe except for him, he probably would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's kind of been shown so far is his role in this world. The way that he is helpful is by doing these things that keep everyone else safe while he is not. And it's just, ugh. And like it's a very like scapegoat thing to want to feel like you need to do that to like be helpful to people. And so it's just those are the situations we get in. And if you ever wonder like why didn't you ask for help? And it's like this is why. Because you've never given me any indication that you would ever want to help me, so why would I ask?
Yeah.
And it's the same, I guess, situation of like why when Annabeth kisses him, he's like shocked and also doesn't see it as like a romantic gesture or anything. Because he knows at this time that Annabeth is still all wrapped up in Luke stuff. And so he's not going to take it seriously. Oh, one part from this whole thing, way back when like the Naiad was yelling at him, was he describes the Naiad yelling at him like when Rachel talks to him. And he's like, Rachel's words feel like punches to like the chest. That is not somebody he is romantically interested in. And no. And I say that as like to show like how the stuff that Annabeth is thinking is not rooted in reality because she's being like abused by Luke. And like she thinks that Rachel is the reason why Percy isn't doing anything with her. No, it's because of Luke. It's because he knows how Luke is messing with her still. She's not like aware of that. She can't be self-aware of that. And so instead she is blaming Rachel and thinking that Rachel is the reason why they're not together because he's interested in her while he's thinking about how talking to her feels like somebody's stabbing him because he feels like he's being like attacked by her words and that she's overwhelming. Not in like a good way at this point. Like she ends up being a friend of his, but he never really thinks about her in that sort of a way exactly. She's just somebody that is a girl that he has met. That's literally it. But it just shows like how kind of separated or like their perceptions are because that's what happens when somebody is manipulating you. You're not aware of it. You don't realize. That's what I mean when I say like she doesn't realize how these things are affecting her. She thinks that Percy is staying away from her because of Rachel. Percy is staying away from her because of Luke. And until she realizes that when she's older, not a lot of his actions make sense. But you as the audience should realize that. Because that's why this situation with these things happen where he ends up almost burning all of his skin off. Yeah. And just full on just completely panics.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that Rick even wrote it in here at all because it does feel so out of place. Like, Percy has no time at all to register this. He thinks he's going to die. He has no plan. He knows that the only chance that they have to complete the quest at this point is for Annabeth to make it out. Like, that's why he does what he does. He's shell-shocked by it, but, like, he also knows he can't be shell-shocked for too long. So what is he going to have time to say?
And I do think it is, like, a thing. I get why Annabeth did it, because it's, like, in the last, like, couple hours of this book, like, he saved everybody at the ranch in a very Percy-like way. Like, Grover says to him when he wakes up from the dream, like, that was amazing how you did that. And so she watches him do that. She watches him help Nico. She watches him, like, figure out a way to fight the Sphinx and deal with and now dealing with this, it's like at a certain point you just get overwhelmed by somebody just like always like trying to help you and try to protect you, especially since this is her quest
Hmm.
and she knows that he's doing this stuff so that she can continue on with the quest and he can just do this because she needs to continue on and like figure out what's going on with Daedalus and stuff. She's the one that needs to talk to Daedalus, not him.
Hmm.
And so it's like she knows he's doing that, and at a certain point you're just like, oh my god, this person just keeps doing all these things for me, and you just want to somehow like thank them. And that's how I thought that moment was, of her being like overwhelmed by all the things Percy does for her when she's been like icing him out, and in the last few months or so of realizing like, what have I been doing? Like
Yeah.
what are we even doing right now? And so it was sweet for her to do that with him, even if he doesn't understand what's happening at all, because he just thinks like, this is just what I do. So like,
Hmm.
why would she do that? Because this is just what I do. This isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I say things like that to my therapist sometimes about stuff, and I can see her like try not to laugh at me about like when I'm talking about stuff that I just do or things that I do or whatever. And I'm like, is that not something that other people do? Like, shouldn't you always do that? Like, I don't understand why that's like a big deal or seen as like special. I don't think that I should get anything for that. Um, like, I don't know. I even like the stuff that we do, it feels very weird to like, I want to make money off of it so that we don't have to have like a soul sucking job, but also it makes me feel gross to imagine like trying to help kids and like making money off of it. Like, ugh, like no. Which is why all the stuff we've done so far is free, because I don't want to, like, we have to in order to survive basically. But it is that kind of a thing of like, I don't see that as like anything extraordinary or special or anything that we should be like rewarded for, because shouldn't everyone want to do this? Like, I
Hmm.
generally don't get it. Like, shouldn't you want to, if you see videos of kids talking about how they're being abused at home right now and nobody believes them, why wouldn't you just say something to them so they know that somebody notices? Or like, if people like, when people talk to me about whatever, like, I don't tell anyone anything they say. But it's just that kind of a thing of like, that's not hard for me to do, that's really easy. And that's like those moments of like, is this not easy for other people? Is it just easy for me because I know how to do it? It's taken me like most of my life to realize that, like, oh, is this difficult for other people? Other people don't know what to say when kids come up to them and are like, my dad sucks, and I'm like, oh, me too, like, give me a list. And or like whatever else, or just like know that when somebody talks to you they want to tell you something and they're like working themselves up to saying it, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm good at this because I have actual skills. But like, that's like Percy of like, oh, I just ruined that ranch because this is what I do, right? I'm a Poseidon kid, so I just like made the ocean come here. That's just what I do, right? That's not a big deal. I'm not like a hero or anything. Nobody should like be
Yeah.
nice to me or give me anything just because I did that. I don't deserve that. This is just what I'm supposed to do. And if I don't do that, the gods are going to kill me anyway. So I might as well do it now, right? And that's just his how he looks at himself.
Yep.
And
So
even to like the new books that are coming out, he's nowhere near like being able to recognize that like, no, other people would not make the same decisions as you. Other people wouldn't help the people that are hurting them sometimes. They would get mad at those people and not want to help. Or like give them a chance. Like when you get mad at me when people are arguing with me when that are kids, and
yeah.
I give them like many, and I like never block them, and always if they ever came back and changed their minds, I would like immediately talk to them or whatever and not hold a grudge against them at all. And it's like that kind of a thing with him, like helping the guy at the ranch and other people like that, even like the hands one. That's just what he does throughout the whole story. He just gives people chances when people are telling him not to, but that's just how he is. And it just, I don't know. I don't know why, like, when you're in like a super scapegoat role, it makes you do that. I know, like, I could explain it psychologically, I guess, but it's just something that happens to you. Because it happens to a lot of us.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just do
Yeah.
it somehow.
But that's essentially where we leave this chapter is Percy was getting molten lava thrown at him, and then all of a sudden he remembers I have this weird water power. I can make water happen, and a huge tidal wave comes up out of the volcano and pushes him like so far into the sky. He's like, Zeus would be mad if he knew I was in the sky this much. And yeah, like that's basically where the chapter ends. Um, so yeah, as you said, we pick up with Calypso's Island next. Next chapter is called "I Take a Permanent Vacation." Um,
Yeah. Next
yeah.
week is, oh my gosh. This is for people that have read the books and like remember them, that not only is next week Calypso, which is something, okay, not only is next week Calypso, which is things that people have probably been waiting for us to talk about for like the better part of a year at this point, but at least since like October.
Ooh.
Um, but also Ethan Nakamura is next week.
Ooh. Okay.
I love him so much. Like I posted a video, just me, literally the entire video is me just smiling like that, saying like I get to talk about Ethan Nakamura soon, and some like dude bros on YouTube got like left mean comments, and I was like, they're mad because I'm so happy in this video, which is just like funny. Um, but I love him so much.
Oh.
He is such an interesting, fascinating, absolutely fascinating character. I like literally Googled like when does Ethan Nakamura show up, because I got tired of like waiting, because I know he's in this book somewhere. He's in the next book too.
Yeah.
And I was like, when does he show up? Because he is so interesting. They mention where he is actually. In the dream with Luke, Luke mentions that we have to find a way to get through the arena.
Mhm.
We don't know what the arena is, but Ethan's in the arena. And so you can like kind of put that together that Luke talks to him first, because Luke is already through that stuff when they get there. But yeah, Ethan is like absolutely fascinating. People love him for a reason. People have been like fan casting Ethan since season one started, because he's a hugely fan favorite character. People love talking about him. He's just such an interesting person. Um, it's really exciting to imagine him being in the show, because he is a very like complex character, and that the way that the person that he kind of represents in a way.